everyone, and welcome to the Knighted Ones podcast, episode number 26. That's right, 26. I'm a little bit more animated now that I'm back this week, but thank you to the team for carrying the water as a few of us were out handling, grown-up things. We don't always get to focus on sports when we want to, but we're back. So we've got the full cast of characters, and as a reminder, we are the only podcast that features a former UCF National Champion, a former UCF radio host, former UCF basketball player, ESPN analyst, and way too tall to get through a door frame. Well, no, he's still too tall to get through a door frame. And several podcasters shooting the breeze talking UCF sports. So welcome back to the show this week. Nobra's back as well, so the production quality immediately went up. So Nobra, how are you doing this week?
Doing good.
Yeah, doing good. Just good, not great. Where's your
I'm
intro?
doing all right. Yeah.
Didn't we establish an intro for you?
I kind of bit off Josh's. I still had yet to establish.
Josh bit off of you.
Yeah.
And you bit off of someone else. So I think it was the other way around. So I don't know. But isn't it supposed to be like, hey now?
Hey now.
Well, there you go. All right, we'll stay with that. I'm going to drop you off. You got to be ready for it next time, bro.
All right.
I'm glad you're back this week, though.
Glad to be back.
All right. Next to the stage, our 2017 UCF National Champion. I'm wearing this shirt this week in his honor.
Listen, y'all started off saying Josh. I bit off of Josh's. Y'all need to pause. That's a crazy way to start the show. That's a crazy way to start the show, man. Oh my goodness.
Well, see, that's why we have him come in last, so we can't bite off of Josh. It's the other way around. He bites off of us. So
pause. What is going on?
Oh man. All right. Next, let's go ahead and bring our very own 7-footer, former UCF basketball player, ESPN analyst, and all-around good guy who helps mothers in need to reach tall things in Publix. Ben Stout, welcome to the show.
What's up, guys? What's up? Yeah, I feel like we're gonna have to maybe change my tagline at the bottom there eventually, because we don't have to explain it every single show. But
oh no, it's great. No,
maybe we'll keep it on until Publix gives me a sponsorship or give us a sponsorship.
Why do you think we're doing this? Come on, Publix, step it up. Like at least a pub sub or something.
I'll take that daily.
Give me strip sub with like ranch on it or something. You know what I mean? Just throw me a bone here.
Sure.
All right. Welcome back to the show, Ben. You were out, as was I last week, so glad you're back. And look who we have here, the man who commandeered the show last week, Alan Levin. Alan, thank you for covering for me on kind of last minute notice there. You guys did a great job, got lots of great comments. But yeah, remember with Josh, it's last but not least, but always last. But not least, but always last.
I botched that one, but happy that the whole crew's back and excited for the show today.
Me too. All right. Speaking of Josh Lazar, last but not least, but always last, Josh Lazar.
I'm not a biter. I'm a writer for myself and others. I do a big verse. I'm only bigging up my brother. Listen.
Oh boy.
There you go. That's on my intro. I'm not a writer. I'm a writer.
No. Now you got to spit bars every time you get like introduced to the show. I mean, that's not. You just screwed yourself with that, because
what more can I say?
Other intro that you do from this point forward is just not going to get to that level. So we'll call it spitting bars with Josh Lazar. So
Josh is 16. We'll see.
Hey, all right. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, there's 3 more people here. This is great. Now we're all very tiny squares on YouTube. This is wonderful.
Well, Nobra won't be on here for very much longer, because he makes sure he's the maestro and keeps us on track in the background while he's eating his dinner after work. So, Nobra, give everybody a good hair shake, and let's get this thing rolling. The good hair. We never see Ben's hair because he's always got a hat on. So
Josh, what
I
do
got
you
a
know?
haircut recently, though. It's just
What you know about Jay-Z, Josh?
Oh, come on.
I-
Is that even a question at this point? Josh
I
is
grew up
like,
in New York. Listen, if you want to go old head, I grew up in the 90s in New York. When I went to the city, I got tapes wrapped in neon paper and the swap marks. Okay. That's and it's on the side. Yeah, I probably would kill a freestyle, but not off the top. I'm not Harry Mack. So, but yeah, I got
so
some
what you're
flow.
saying was you were
3 words.
you were Eminem before Eminem was Eminem. Is that what I just heard?
No. It's I could even think to be possibly even the space of that would be amazing, but no, there is a lot of musicality in my background. I was I sing Italian opera at points and arias, and I was all-state singer back in high school. But like most amazing dreams, they just go, life in the gutter. No, never got there.
Italian opera.
Yeah. So here's the thing that we just learned about Josh. He was also in the running for the Backstreet Boys back in the day. If you guys didn't know, he was definitely.
I'm gonna pause this for a second because I'm gonna do one. As long as you can let me run this. Hold on one second. I gotta show you something.
Oh,
This is
oh my gosh. Dude,
hold on. I gotta get props.
It's gonna
be bad. See this? Ooh, old school logo from UCF. Ooh,
That's
Okay.
throwback.
You got a trophy?
1999.
What is that trophy for?
Nitro
Homecoming.
Karaoke Challenge.
Karaoke
UCF
Challenge.
Homecoming 1999. First.
Look at this guy.
What? Okay, that's impressive.
That's legit. Josh turned into the world's most interesting man all of a sudden.
Well, no, he drops these
Bars.
little nuggets all the time. It's
Singing
just
karaoke, man. You never cease to amaze me, Josh.
All right. So hold on. Did you hang out with Glycerin too at that time, or what was going on? Because
Yes.
99 we still had Glycerin.
Yeah, that was man. There's a picture of me on, not from that, for something else. It was when we did Spirit Splash, and there's a picture of me looking like an idiot from the 90s, to be honest. And with
We
Nitro
all
and
looked like
Glycerin
idiots in
on the
90s.
stage. What?
No, we didn't.
Well,
Dude, you were like 12 in
He
19.
was like a baby in the
Like,
90s.
were you born in the
You're-
90s? Were you born?
96. I was born in 96.
He was a legit
Exactly.
baby.
I can tell you. Okay, so I was probably crisscross wearing stuff backwards time frame, but
Hold on.
no.
What song won you the trophy? Nobra's.
Good question.
So I only remember the two. Maybe there was three. I know my go-to song is very, very simple, and we'll probably get E for everyone on this. It's "Baby Got Back" by Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Oh
That is
my
my
goodness.
Go-to karaoke song that I kill all the time.
What?
Back when I was single. Love you, Teresa. Back when I was
Got
single,
back. Oh
I'd
my
throw
goodness.
I'd throw my cell
can
phone
see it.
number in the chorus when I was single, and that helped a little. Instead of
There you
1-900
go.
Mix-a-Lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but
my
I would pay
second.
money to see
That's
that.
my second karaoke song there, Josh. I'm with you on that.
So
Yeah.
so here's actually what won it though. That just got me to the next round, and they had this big wheel. There might have been another song in the middle, but they had this big wheel, and you had to spin the songs of what you're going to sing. It was random. So I got "Genie in a Bottle" by Christina Aguilera.
Wow.
You sang Genie in a Bottle?
I nailed "Genie in a Bottle." It was good. It was really, really good. And that's not me being not humble brag. It was just, you have to recognize. So me in 99, I was probably about, from this point forward, about 40 to 70 pounds heavier. Okay. And I was full kind of metal head, Jenko jeans, silly hats, Vans Warped Tour-ish, like a whole thing. And I might have even had my fraternity
All right,
jersey
so
on.
hold on.
So anyway,
Next show. For next show, you've got to have a 90s era picture of Josh that we can show.
I'll try. I really don't have any. Like, there was one I remember. I don't really have any. Remember, this is still the 90s. It was like point and click and develop film, and we didn't have cell phones with it. But yeah, so it was it was. I kind of wish I had it because I mean, it wasn't good. If you remember the '90s, any of you, a couple of you maybe, let's
a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Remember the 90s.
Like we're talking the
90s
big
is the best era.
Yeah, the big hats with weird fuzzy things that you got at Spencer's Gifts or whatever. You know, the chain wallets and the big jeans, and I was a mess. I have no idea how I'm married right now, but I am happily. My wife found like a gem in this odd little man. So
God bless her.
All right,
Yeah,
all right. So we're gonna bring Jose Guapo on here.
What?
I think we might have Jose Guapo coming on to the show. So, yeah, we had Joey Connors. We were trying to get him this week, the last couple of weeks, and he, unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it last week. But it looks like he's going to be hopping on here with us. For those of you that don't remember Joey, you should. He played with us from 2015, so that's Trey's era, right? Through 2018.
We came in together.
Exactly. So you came in together. You just
my
left a little early.
Jose Guapo.
Jose Guapo. That was his nickname. So he's a defensive lineman. He was number 91. He's from Georgia as well. But he had a little bit of a little
around the world.
Yeah,
definitely. Millions, man. He made a couple of people millions, man.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I will tell you this. That hit. I remember that hit. I thought there was no way that Burrow was getting up after that. I mean, he came out with smelling salts and all that, and we'll when he comes on here in a few minutes, we'll ask him about that, because I remember when I played football, the blind side block is the best type of hit you'll ever get, because the person isn't expecting it. So I remember when I was in high school, I knocked this one kid. It was on film too. We were on the opposite side of the field. We were returning it was either a fumble or an interception. This kid was coming down with a full head of steam. Made sure to get my shoulder on the inside, right? So that it was legal, but knocked him about like 5 yards into his sideline. And the coach, I just remember he walked up to him, looked down, and just shook his head like that. And on the video, you can just hear that crack of the helmet, like all the way across on the old camera. So it was a lot of fun. I can imagine Joey felt really, really, really good after that one. So he should be on here with us shortly.
Jose Guapo.
What's up, guys? What's up, Trey?
Hey,
up, man? How you doing, man?
So excited to have you on this week. We were talking a little bit about some of our favorite hits when we were playing, because obviously you had a mighty nasty one on that one play, and you knocked the football into Joe Burrow. So as a Bengals fan, thank you for that. Hated it at the time, but I appreciate that, because you made that guy some millions on that hit.
No problem. Yeah, it was. It felt good in the moment, but probably about 3 minutes later in the next quarter, it was not too good.
Yeah. I can't believe, how did he get up from that? I swear I remember them going over and like throwing some smelling salts underneath him to wake him up, because I swear to God, I thought he was knocked out.
Yeah, I think everybody thought he wasn't good enough. I thought he wasn't good enough, but he got up, and I don't think he missed after that.
No, he didn't. It was crazy. It was like I don't know. You lay somebody out like that, you watch it, and then who was it that was over there with you that got us the penalty on that play?
Nate.
That was it Nate?
Nate, yeah.
Yeah, he got us
smack after.
I don't blame him though. I don't blame him.
I mean, I'd have been
not
fired
blame
up after that hit. I can tell you that right now.
That play shows up on my Instagram like all the time, randomly.
Yeah.
So Joey, for those Knight fans, because one of the good things about our success and a lot of the success that you guys drove was we have a lot of younger fans on that may not remember you from your years here. You started off like Trey in 2015, which I was there for a lot of those games, and not very many other people were. But coming out of that George O'Leary time frame, and then moving on, under Scott Frost, and and then this run of success. Tell them a little bit about your journey, how you got to UCF. And what was it like in those early days in 2015? Trey likes to tell the story why he came to UCF. I'd love to hear that from you too.
Yeah, originally from right outside of Atlanta, Georgia, with Trey, both Georgia boys. Went to Harrison High School, and Coach Brent Key, who's now the head coach at Tech, recruited me down there to UCF. And I'm originally from, was born in Clearwater, got a bunch of family that was living near the Orlando area. Growing up and then getting in high school, I've always wanted to go play football back down in Florida somewhere. So that was just one of my goals. Both my parents graduated from Florida State, so that was kind of the dream school growing up, but they didn't even look at me or recruit me. So one day just UCF reached out to me, and Coach Key got me down there on a visit and offered me kind of on the spot. And probably a couple months later, I committed. And kind of, it was one of those things. Once I got there, saw the campus, went on the campus tour, saw the dorms, saw the facilities. It was one of those things where I knew that was home.
That's funny because Trey mentions that too, like about the facilities and more specifically about the dorms and stuff. And, everybody knows all of that's relatively new, and the way that it's set up where you're right there by the facilities, that's convenient. Did you go on any other visits or any other schools, and you were like comparing and like, oh, this is way better than that school?
I went on a couple unofficial visits, but Coach O'Leary was pretty old school, and decided not to go on anymore, so I made sure I had my scholarship to UCF.
Yeah, his thing was you shop, we shop.
Yep.
And I remember too, he always told all the players that don't commit unless you're actually ready to commit.
Exactly. So yeah, I made sure to not go anywhere else. And once I committed to UCF, I was all in and stayed committed. And I know in our class, I think our class pretty much stayed together, for 4 years. So, it was a good thing. And we had a really good class that came in and, was able to win a conference championship my first year, which was fun.
Yeah, it's way different now, right? Guys hop around. It's different for fans too. And I'm sure you see this now that you're outside of the locker room, right? I remember back in those days, and we've talked about it with Trey, we do Fan Fest and we go hang out on the, on the practice fields or whatever after Fan Fest, and everybody be out there, all the freshmen and sophomores. You just got to know people and got to watch them succeed and continue through the program and root for them as they kind of developed. And unfortunately, you don't get that as much anymore with the transfer portal and everything else that's going on. Everybody's moving around. So that's one thing I kind of miss. Obviously, we know who the White Horse is. We know a lot about him. I actually got it. O'Leary was kind of interesting because if you got him outside of like coaching or by himself, he was a different person when you got to talk to him that way, right? What are some stories about your time then with Coach O'Leary that kind of stick out to you or might be memorable?
I would say like you just said, outside the practice field, I thought he was one of the greatest guys and just took care of you. I mean, I felt like, obviously everybody has the stories of Coach O'Leary, and I mean, I'm sure Trey's probably told a bunch, but he generally cared for, us off the field and looked after our best interest. Like you just said. Now on the field, yeah, he was going to make sure to bring out the, the best in you, going back to Friday morning workouts in our redshirt year.
Woo!
Doing bear crawls, running the stadium, doing lunges, doing sleds, that kind of stuff. But probably the best one, is this is my redshirt freshman year. Get pulled up. I think it was like Tulane week. Got put on scout team. My redshirt freshman year was kind of down, and then get pulled up. And he was big defensive guy, as we all know. Everybody knows Coach O'Leary's a big defensive guy, and you look over, you see the signal for the defense, and you go back to the play, and there was one play where he thought I didn't look, and he stopped just the entire practice, just called me out, came over, got in my face, and made sure I got the signal. So I did not miss another signal after that. So that's probably the best story. But, I mean, like you just said, generally probably one of the, I'd say off the field, just guys that generally would take care of you if you needed anything. I still remember he came back to a practice. I think it was Coach Frost. I mean, Trey might know. Was it Frost? I don't know. I don't think it was.
Yeah. It was Frost.
Yeah, I remember.
Frost, and he came back and he watched like 5 or 6 plays, and I got out of the rotation and came and saw him, said what's up, and of course, first thing he said is, your stance is wrong. You got to do this. You got to do that. And then of course, like 5 minutes later, oh, how's your family doing? So he's still, the coach was still inside of him, still trying to coach me up even when he was done. And then, but obviously still asked about my family, my mom and all that. So, but, grateful. He was one that gave me the opportunity to go down there, and, I wouldn't be, where I am right now in my profession without him for sure.
So were you the recipient of the ace, or what nickname did he have for you?
I think everybody was recipient of the ace.
Everybody.
At some point in their career, if you played for Coach O'Leary, you got it at some point.
Everybody.
Yeah, he's a colorful character, but he always took time one-on-one, even with people that were there with families or fans or whatever. He always made sure to do that kind of stuff, and that's just who he was. And if you have a conversation, people don't. I mean, I think people somewhat get it, because like when he was in interviews or whatever, he always said something off the wall hilarious, right? So like he had a lot of humor to him, and he was a lot of fun. Josh had something. Josh, what did you want to say?
Yeah, so and I know we are a sports podcast, but I think even Trey and Joey, hey Joey, nice to see you. Maybe what is so understated is O'Leary's dedication to the student part of the student athlete. I remember, like, there was a class. I'll be very general for regulations, all that. There was a class where a lot of students are in. It's a class that a lot of students are in right now, and something was going on with the student part of the student athlete, and he not ASSA. He asked personally to have a conversation with him to make sure the students are getting the education they need. Like he was a lot of things, and he's I don't know about the football side, but from the academic side, he was really, really, really dedicated to making sure everyone graduated, did well in class, attended class, and did all that. So, I mean, I know we talk sports all the time, but as someone who is an educator and has been in that space for a long, long time, that shouldn't be that should be really clearly stated alongside of his kind of reputation here at UCF.
Yeah, Josh, if you didn't know Joey, which you didn't because Josh didn't say that, he's a professor at UCF. So that's why all the academic side is super important.
But I was an adjunct for like 18 years, so I've been around. You might have been my student. I don't even know.
So, the academic side, that was definitely something for him. He also made sure people had scholarships. If they left the program early to go to the NFL, they could still come back and get their degrees. Kevin Smith took advantage of that. A bunch of different people did. That 2013 team, what did that mean to you? Were you aware of them at the time? I know Trey talks about it a lot, how it was a foundational team for a lot of the players that were coming in. Well, is that really when UCF got on your radar?
I would say, yeah. I mean, that definitely put them on there. But I knew, I kind of knew of UCF. I'd say, I mean, I was at that time, I believe I was already committed. So I knew them, but I think people, and like, I mean, Trey might know too, like up in Georgia where I was from, even, I'm sure even, you go to Alabama and they didn't know who UCF was. And then once I think they beat that Baylor team, it kind of put them on the map, I think, for everybody to see them, not just, I think, us, as fans and players and recruits, but I think that put them for the whole world. Once they kind of upset Baylor, they went in there without their DC, Baylor had all this high-powered offense, and they go up there and put all those points up. So I think that game alone just put them on notice for everybody and put UCF on the map.
Yep.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to talk about, we've kind of talked a lot, once we transitioned to Scott Frost, right? We talked a lot about 2016 and 2017, but Trey decided to go to school somewhere else. So we don't talk about that very much. But that UCF football experience for that second undefeated year, right? So we really don't have a lot of feedback from Trey on that, and I'd love to hear your take on just that transition to Frost and what that meant to you as a player, and then also kind of walk us through 2018 and what that was like heading into the season with those expectations, knowing you had a target on your back, having as you progress through the season, realizing that, hey, we might go undefeated again. And, obviously the loss of KZ and how that affected you as a member of the team.
Yeah. From going from O'Leary to Frost, I think Trey Press probably talked about it. It's just a fresh air almost, like it was something new for us. And it was something I think we really needed, just because kids, nowadays are way different than how they were, 10 years ago, just the way it is. So we that new, just fresh, and how Coach Frost was, first week going there, start working out with us, power cleaning 315 like it was nothing, and just going out on the track, running a mile like in 4 minutes, acting like it was nothing. So it was just something different, running scout team quarterback and doing all that. It was just something I think we needed, because we never, had that in the years, with Coach O'Leary. So I think that was just a huge thing that Coach Frost did. And then obviously transitioning to Coach Heupel, obviously it's a big deal going undefeated. Then you have to come in and try to, do it again as a new head coach. So that was probably a tough situation that he was in, but he handled it really well. After we beat Memphis, and not upset, after we beat Memphis and all that, Danny White called us on office, asked us what we wanted. And, so we told him exactly what we wanted. All the offense guys wanted high tempo, high power, a lot of points, all that. And, defense, we said what we wanted. And then Coach Heupel got hired, came into a team meeting, got hired. We were kind of like a little bit shocked because nobody really saw it coming, because obviously we all know social media now, so you see all these rumors, and nobody saw that at all. But he did a really good way. I think like within the first, week, Coach Heupel had every class over to his house, with open arms, and had a dinner with every single class, and had a pool party, so you had every single player, in that building came over to his house and saw him how he interacted with his kids, with his family, which I thought was important. And then, within the next month, he made all the position coaches, take, another position out for dinner. So I went golfing with the, OC and the running back coach, as a D lineman. So he did stuff like that, So, Coach Hype was great. I think he did it the right way. Obviously, he was offensive minded, but he showed a lot of love to the defense. But I think that helped the transition and helped us buy in. And then, we had such a tight knit group, I think, with our class, and it led down to some of the class below us. That 2018, we had so much confidence we were rolling. You could probably ask anybody in that class, and even the year before, every game we went and think we were winning. There was like no doubt in our mind. We didn't care who we put up, like we were winning that game, and that's the confidence we have. And I tell people all the time now, I'm coaching, and confidence is a crazy thing. It carries over, but down 15 against Memphis twice, whatever it was, we like. If you came to the locker room, you thought we were winning by 2 touchdowns, because we just knew we were going to come back. Like we were like, yeah, whatever, we'll come back and win. So
you're right,
is a crazy thing.
Joey. We were talking about sidelines all season last season, right? Mm-hmm. What the sidelines looked like, how dead they were. Like there wasn't anybody that were current players that were sitting there and motivating the other players, right? You didn't have the bowling pin celebrations or any of that kind of stuff that were going on in 2017 and 2018. And I think that's been a huge difference for last year's team. And you heard Gus talk about that this year as well, as how they're trying to change that mentality and really foster that leadership amongst the team, so that they're motivated. And, bringing bringing in a new OC that really is centered around building that culture and that toughness mentality. Trey talked a lot about how, the advantage for that 2017-2018 team was you had a lot of O'Leary players who had the O'Leary fundamentals on how to, practice, how to the effort that needs to be put in. While at the same time, you got Frost, who came in and brought his way of doing things, and Heupel as well, which were a little more lenient. But that mix of having both is what led to a lot of that success. How do you feel about that? Do you think really that was a big difference maker for that team?
Yeah, I think it was huge, and I think that it was a very, and that's the biggest thing is like Coach O'Leary was big fundamentals, obviously. Being the big fundamentals effort. You're going to run the ball, and then I think you're exact. Coach Frost, like we said, it was something different, and it was have fun doing what we're doing. Like we're up here spending all this time doing this. We're putting all these hours in these workouts and fall camp, and we might as well have fun with it. And don't get me wrong, we had fun, playing my first 2 years when I was with Coach O'Leary. Not so much the second year when we know what happened that season. But
we all understand that.
Yeah, but I mean, if you probably asked all the guys that came in with me, and I think without Coach O'Leary, having that background of fundamentals and the way he coached us and all that, we probably don't go undefeated without that, going into those next years with Coach Frost and all that, just because with how he was. And we knew whatever coach they were bringing in, and Trey could probably tell us, is like, we've been through the hardest stuff we've ever, nothing
ever.
Than this.
I literally tell him, like, bro, we were in those first 2 years. I felt like I should have joined the military. At least I'd get paid to do this. Like, holy smokes.
That's the strongest I've ever felt. My upper body felt great.
Ever. Oh my gosh. Funny, but like I remember the funniest thing for me, like just about Joey, was when we were our freshman year, we just got dropped off. I think, we're freshmen, we're excited. So we all go out on the track. So we're like, yeah, let's see who's fastest. So everybody's racing. Everybody, boom, boom. I raced Chris Williams and Kyle Gibson and all that. And all of a sudden, Joey's like, hey, CJ, because they were roommates. CJ, race me. CJ Jones was a running back. Mind you, Joey is a defensive lineman.
Right.
So we're like, is this guy crazy? Joey beats him in the 40-yard dash. And I was like, when I saw that, I said, oh, yeah, he's going to be good. Because if he can run like this, all he has to do is put on weight, and he's got it. I mean, it was just seeing him run. I mean, we all talk about the hit and the big hit on Joe Burrow and stuff like that. But like we saw Joey, or at least me, I saw him like work and grow. And like, he went from, I think you were what, like 230, 240 when you came in? Like you were a big dude, but you were like, compared to what you got to, I saw the work bigger. And you see how explosive. And I used to talk to like Coach Duval. I'm like, Joey is explosive for a defensive lineman. And I mean, those are always like the cool stories. You get to see just the growth of guys. And, from when I came in there with him, I was a stick. He was a bigger guy, but compared to where he finished, we both finished. We gained a lot of weight. And I mean, again, that was, we say it because of Coach O'Leary, man, those Nitros meals and those 10 sets of 10s on those Friday morning 10 sets of 10s used to, that's what the foundation was, at least for me and him. Because that's all we knew, it was, you guys aren't playing. So you got to get stronger. You got to get bigger. So,
and we talk about it, like, now I'm in the coaching role even now. And it's like, you don't see red shirts that often now that like do that. Like, like Trey said, I went in at like 250. Wyatt Miller went in at like 260. Whatever he was. All these guys, and we knew, but going in, we knew we got a red shirt. We got to get bigger, stronger, faster, do all that. And then we all end up playing, for 3-4 years after that,
Exactly.
Now, it's the way college football works. If you want a red shirt, that kid might just transfer. You just don't know.
Yep. It's a different world, man. I say that every week. I don't understand it. I can't really talk to it. I just hear from like you and, and Brim, the guys in the coaching field. I'm like, how do you guys deal with this? Because this wasn't, they recruited me. They say, hey, you might play, but you're most likely going to red shirt because you got to get bigger physically and then wait your turn. And, there's a beauty in that process. Nowadays, kids are like, man, I'm a baller. Put me in now or I'm leaving, and it's a tough thing. I couldn't imagine dealing with that.
And that probably attests with how tight our group was, our age, because we knew, okay, even the guys that are a year above us, like Tony was going through those Friday morning workouts.
Yeah.
Dakeem was. They're all with us.
Yeah.
Like people don't realize, like my freshman year If you look at our scout team freshman year, that was the 20.
The whole
20.
That was the that was the defense.
That was the 2017 defense. We had
we
Shaquem.
were all scout team.
Yeah, we were all scout team, but like we knew we had each other back. We knew we literally have gone. We had to do a push up every yard line on the indoor, like an up down every 5 yards. We knew we did all that stuff together.
Bear crawl every 5 yards, bro. It was. I'm telling you, like when Frost and them used to come in and be like, "Y'all don't think this is hard?" We're like, "Coach, you don't understand what we were doing." Like, I wish you could have seen what we were doing, because this is a walk on the park. Like, I'll do this every day. Come call me on Saturday, Sunday. We'll do it. Like this.
Hold on.
Was it 4 quarters?
4 quarters, bro. That was a cakewalk.
Yeah. So Joey, I played basketball in the early 2000s. So Trey's heard me tell the story of being on the basketball team when O'Leary came in. And so y'all were thrown into the deep end, as freshmen with O'Leary, but then you got to transition to somebody like Frost, which was a little bit better. What those guys, they did the opposite. The guys in the early 2000s, they did the opposite. They went from a players coach and Coach Kruzek to O'Leary. And Trey's heard me tell the story of being on the basketball team and just seeing in the summer and the fall, like O'Leary coming in there. Actually, I should say the spring when O'Leary got hired, right as he got hired, basically O'Leary coming in trying to make people quit. And it was and that was an interesting time in the early 2000s. If you're on the Wayne Dench, right when they built the new Wayne Dench, I still call it the new
air conditioning, by the way. At that time.
Oh, we didn't have air conditioning our first 2 years until Frost got there.
Right. And
I know.
So yeah, I mean that was a crazy transition. But one of the questions I wanted to ask you, actually, Joey, as you were talking about that 2018 team, and to be honest with you, it was pretty refreshing to hear you talk about how Heupel came in and had different position groups, bring out the guys from another position group, and hearing about how involved Heupel was with at least the defensive players, if not the defensive, game plan, if you will. Because one of the things from an outsider's perspective or a fan's perspective of the Heupel time at UCF is that Randy Shannon got hired before Heupel, right? So everybody said, well, Heupel now at Tennessee kind of is able to, for the first time, when he got hired at Tennessee, kind of for the first time was able to be the kind of like true head coach of a program. And again, this is just an outsider's or a fan's perspective. And so how was that between Randy Shannon and Josh Heupel, as far as just the dynamic of, because at least the perception was at that time that Randy Shannon was essentially the head coach of the defense and Josh Heupel was the head coach, not of the program, but of the offense. And so was that perception a little bit of reality, or was it just fans and other people talking?
I think it was a lot of fans in a way. But you obviously you see all that. But no, I think, it worked out great. In my opinion, I think people see that, I think now even in the coach world, like you go against each other during fall camp, you go into their spring ball, like the OC and DC are going to go up against each other. But I will say those, both of those guys generally care about the players. It's one thing I think they had in common. Like right when I got done playing, Coach Shannon would text me all the time if I needed something. If I needed something now being in the coach world, if I needed a recommendation, he'd call somebody. Same with Coach Heupel. If I ever needed anything, right when he knew I was getting into the coaching world, he made phone calls for me. He found out I was getting married, I think 2 years ago. And, he sent me a wedding present that showed up randomly at my door, got my address and sent me a wedding present, just stuff like that. So I think, both of them, they generally care, for the players, and you could see that through both of them. Now you could see they were both very competitive. They both wanted to win, and you could see that during fall camp, and you could see that during spring ball.
That's funny because one of the things I think from a fan's perspective, when everything went down and Otis spoke, with Otis and he spoke at Otis's funeral, I think a lot of people really realized how much he actually did care. And up until that point, from an outsider's perspective, I don't feel that people really gave him credit for that, right? And I think that was really the dividing point, but it's good to hear it from your perspective too, having been on that 2018 squad, because that wasn't an easy position for him to come into at all.
I think that was the hardest job in the country.
100%.
Yeah, you come in after Frost and all those expectations and the undefeated season and all that other stuff, and you've got this team now that you've got to take control of. You've got new defensive coaches. There wasn't any consistency in the coaching. I mean, let's be real. Frost took all of the coaching staff with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you guys were literally starting from scratch. And, what I had always heard was that basically he said that first year, I'm going to take pieces and try to continue on as much as he could instead of putting his own system in, tried to adjust his system to try to continue on that success. And I think he did that, navigated that successfully, to me. So one thing, I'm just going to throw this as an anecdote, and this, you can take this serious or you can't. But one of the things from the outside perspective was second half Randy. That those speeches must have been like amazing. So
halftime speeches
in the second half. And why do you guys think you played so much better in the second half defensively than the first?
I'm gonna be honest. I mean, we didn't make any. From what I remember, obviously it was a long time ago. Well, it feels like a long time ago. We didn't make any crazy adjustments. I think it goes back to when I was talking about confidence. When I'm telling you, we could be down fit, we had the confidence that we would beat anybody. It did not matter who. We would go play anybody. We thought we'd beat anybody. So at halftime, I think one thing Coach Shannon did really, really good at is no matter what the score was, no matter if we're winning by 30, winning by 40, he always kept his composure. He never showed like he was stressing. So I don't think then the stress didn't come. He didn't go up there at halftime and start freaking out saying we got to pitch a second half shutout or else we're not winning. Never once that he showed any type of stress. He was calm, and if we had to make adjustments, he goes, these are the little things we got to do, guys. We got to tackle better. We got to create turnover too, and we're going to win a game. We'll be fine. But I think during those halftime adjustments, he was just very calm, and told he would always put confidence in us. That's the one thing I think he did a really, really good job with is he would pump confidence into the players, and I think that you saw that throughout the, and he was the same way at halftime. He was calm. He'd give us confidence, and I don't know what it was, but sure enough, go out and shut teams out in the second half. We like to make things interesting, I guess, the second year.
So, from a scheme perspective, right, you guys were going to a new coaching staff, and obviously Coach Chin's, he had a very different defensive style than what O'Leary did. He was more about getting turnovers for possessions because we knew we had a high scoring offense, which number one must have wore you guys out. I can't imagine being on that team with as many times you had. I played defense, and being on the field for that many reps, that would have wore me out. But when we start talking about defensive scheme, did he dial back the scheme a little bit for you guys when he came in, just because he's a new coach and they're trying to get you used to him as a coach or his scheme?
No, Coach Shannon, no. I mean, I thought we were more aggressive with him when it comes to blitzing, and we were 3 down, we were 4 down. We were always moving as D linemen. So I felt like we were more aggressive. I think one thing as a staff they tried to get to know all of us first, and then I think they kind of saw what we could handle, and then they, put in their scheme. But we were a pretty, I would say, veteran group. I mean, now the year before, the 2017, trade in the Peach Bowl year, we lost a lot. I mean, when you look at our starting group, we lost a lot that people don't see. When you look down the line, we lost a lot of players. But we had a lot of smart players, and, we had Pat at linebacker.
Very smart.
We had Pat, who carried the linebacker group. We had, me on the D line, and then we had in the safety, we had Kyle and Richie Grant, who's probably one of the, smarter safeties that you'll ever, meet. So, and then at corner, you have Novell, who had a bunch of reps, and, we had a bunch of really smart football players, so they knew we could handle it. So I think they were pretty aggressive with the install and getting it in, and, going forward. I thought it worked out great, but he was I'll say his defense was very aggressive because we were going 3 down, 4 down. We were busting all over the place.
Stunning.
Yeah.
I remember. Y'all did a lot.
Yeah, I remember too, one of the things people forget is that defense is complementary too, right? If you've got a good secondary, it allows you to be more aggressive with the D line, right? So you can really get after the quarterback. And I remember a lot of that from that year as well. Let's talk a little bit about KZ and when that all went down and what that was like for you as a player. Obviously for us, it was crazy because I remember during that game, I was watching it on TV because I was out of town. And I was telling the person that I was with, I'm like, he's got to quit running. Get down, get out. Like we're too close to the next game and the potential for another undefeated season. What did that feel like for you guys while you were there? Can you kind of talk us through what it was like on the field when he went through that?
Yeah, I mean, on the field, it was complete shock. None of us really wanted to believe it, in my opinion. And then, him getting off Carter the field was a unreal feeling. It was awful. Now, at the same time, we knew that there was a game to be played because it was early on in the game. But I think in that moment when the cart was there and all that, we were all, if you look I think in the whole sideline, we were in complete shock. And I think, I don't know if it was Coach Heupel or one of the seniors gathered everybody up and kind of, hey, if, KZ will want us to go out and win this game, that's what he'll want us to do. So we all thought about that. And then, but, when you go into the locker room after the game, you just beat USF, you're celebrating, getting a picture with the trophy, all that. It wasn't like that at all. It was, I'd say probably 75% of the locker room was crying. In tears, calling KZ, trying to see if he's good, calling his parents. It wasn't celebrating a win over USF and going to the conference championship. It was people were crying and checking in on KZ and calling, trying to see if he was all right.
How did you guys, how much did you know? Like, did you know how bad it really was, that it was life-threatening and everything, like during the game or shortly thereafter? When did you guys find that out?
During the game, we had no clue. We had no clue what was going on during the game. It wasn't until after the game where we got a little bit of update, but we didn't know how, severe it was. They updated us a little bit. And I mean, we kind of knew it was bad when you bring out the air cast and everything else on the field. You're getting carted off. We know it's bad, but we know it was the extent of obviously what the injury was after the game.
So you guys go into the conference championship that year. And you don't have your starter. You don't have your starting QB. And the guy who comes in and replaces it plays the game of his life, right? Like how did you guys feel going into that game? Were you confident in his ability to do that? How did you feel throughout the game and watching him play? Because I've watched him play a lot. Mm-hmm. I wasn't expecting the way that he performed. How did that motivate you guys? What were you guys thinking going into the game, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, going into the game, there was obviously a lot going on with KZ and everything, but we all knew, we've watched DJ practice. We watched him, what he did. I mean, he's a big guy, and we knew he could run the ball, obviously, when you saw what he did. But also, we've seen what he could do with his arm. I mean, he has an arm on him, he could throw it. So we had confidence that he was going to go in and, play really well. First half turnovers, I think if we don't have those turnovers, it's probably we're winning that game by a touchdown or two going into, up by a touchdown or two going into half instead of where we were. And we knew in the second half, defensively, we would play a lot better. I mean, I think we gave up probably over 200 yards rushing on defense in the first half. So we knew it was on the defense. And I think what really did is the seniors kind of stepped up, talked, and, like we always talk about the senior leadership with Wyatt on the other side. He was a big deal. Then you have Pat and Kyle and all the other guys on the defense that, came together like, if we're going to win this game defensively, we got to do something. Obviously we're able to force a turnover at the very end and have a couple stops. And I always knew with our offense, if we can get a couple stops, we're going to win the game. And that's kind of what happened in that second half. But we always had faith in DJ. We always knew he was going to go do well. We watched him during practice. We see it. We get, yeah. So we get to, that's what, it's hard for the fans. You don't get to see what some of these guys do at practice, the backup quarterbacks, or if it's a receiver that comes out of nowhere. Like, you know, Trey can attest to this. Like, we always knew Gabe Davis was gonna be a dude. Like, come to the summer, come to his first summer workout and watch what that guy does. He was gonna be a dude. So it's like, you know, for fans, it's hard to see. You know, you can't see that, but you know, we all see that as players.
So go ahead.
No, I was gonna say we knew all those freshmen were gonna be good. Like him, Marlon, Otis, like those were some different kind of freshmen when they came in. Like we're like, oh yeah, they're gonna play and they're gonna make a lot of plays.
So you go into you win the conference championship game, and now you're gonna go play LSU. What was the thought process and game plan going in to LSU? And it felt like you had all the confidence in the world up until that hit, and then there was, and it wasn't even the hit. It felt like after that penalty, the wind got knocked out of our sails a little bit, and it was still a close game. People forget that was still a close game even with the loss. Take us through like what your mindset was going and the strategy was going into the game, and then kind of what happened after that penalty and what the mindset was after that.
Yeah, I mean, going into the game, I think it was like every game we played in the season, it was just another game. Obviously, they're LSU coming from the SEC, so they got, you know, some different athletes over there. I think, you know, that offense, that the running back, quarterback, like they all went first round, center went like second round. So they had some different dudes on that team. But at the time, we were just treating it like every other game. You know, we had the same scouting report that we do every game. So we had a lot of confidence and, you know, felt like we had a pretty good week out there in Arizona. Good week of preparation, all that. So we were feeling going in. And then, you know, first drive, they return the kick and then we hold them to a field goal. So we, you know, defensively, we were pretty confident, you know, for them to get a long kick return. I think it was almost down to like the 10-yard line. And then we hold them to 3 points. So defense, we were confident. And, you know, then our offense goes down and score. And then they drive on us. And then we get to pick six. And we go up 14-3. And, yeah, then the hit happened. And I think, honestly, if you look at that game, there were some key penalties that set us back in critical moments that could, I think could have changed the game completely. And then, you know, sometimes they got some better athletes, you know, in positions that kind of hurt us in certain spots. And, you know, obviously they had like 6 first rounders. So, you know, it was tough at that point. But at the same time, I think there's a couple penalties there that I think if you take those away, obviously, and like you just said, like we lost by 8 points, people act like we lost by 21.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was and that team, I mean, the expectations were high for that LSU team going into it. And obviously, we didn't have KZ, which I'm not trying to disparage DJ, but, you know, KZ is a starter for a reason. He's dynamic in a different way than what DJ was. DJ could run, and he was a bigger body. So the way he impacted the game on runs was different. But just, you know, KZ's ability, he reminded me a lot of Mahomes in the way that he could throw different arm angles and all of the different things that he was doing to make it difficult for defenses to scheme him and stop him. So you guys are finished with the game. You go through the game. You're done for the season. And then, you know, for your career, what was next steps for you? Did you go through? Obviously, you did the combine, I think, as I recall. So you did not the combine, the
Pro day.
Yeah,
Yep.
You did the pro day. We talked with Trey a couple of weeks ago about his pro day experience. What was your experience like, and were you getting any, you know, material interest where you were thinking about making the NFL like your long-term career?
Yeah. Well, this is off top, but one thing I also think people don't give KZ enough credit, and Trey can attest, is how smart he was. Probably one of the smartest football players I've been around. And now that I've coached, you know, alongside Frost, and now I'm here with Coach Levy, and I've heard story. I mean, from what I've heard, KZ is one of the smartest, and obviously now he's in the coaching world, and hopefully one day I can coach with him. But from what I've heard, he is one, and you know, fans might not know it, but he's one of the smartest quarterbacks that probably has been through UCF. You know, obviously, like you said, his athletic ability to make all those throws and stuff like that, you know, is to speak for itself. But, you know, I think when that doesn't get enough credit with how smart of a football player he was. Yeah,
amazing player, and we were all waiting for him to get his coaching gig, his coaching gig. And, I think all of us want him to come back to UCF someday too. Like I'm excited now. We had a few of the coaching staff that came back, like, in the past. Becton was one, Coach Fish, there's a few former players that have come back. But now that everybody's kind of getting out there, getting UCF alum back on campus as coaches here, I'm excited about that, especially now that we're a Power 4. I'm not going to say Power 5 because that doesn't exist anymore. Power 4 conference, which is, it's pretty amazing to think about. I mean, you think about where we were when you guys were playing. That made a lot of that happen. 2016 came along. They looked at us and said, we're good. But then you guys came back in 2017 and 2018 and truly showed out and allowed us to build a brand around it. And I think that made a huge difference. And hats off to all of you guys for doing that, because it was your sweat equity. It was your effort. It was your winning that really allowed us to move on to that next level. And it was a joy to watch. I mean, having podcasted well before then, I was part of the first UCF podcast, as was Ben, doing a radio show during that time when you guys were, on fire locally. I can tell you, as someone who also was at UCF, as you can tell by my gray hair and receding hairline, in '99, and knowing where we were then, right, to where we were when you guys were playing. You made a huge difference, and you should be proud of everything that you guys did. So, all right. You talked a little bit about, what you're doing today, but we really didn't go into that. So why don't you share with everybody, like, the good news about all those things that you're doing?
Yeah. So I did do pro day. After the season, I had to get, a big, not a huge ankle surgery, but I had to get an ankle surgery. Was playing on it all season. Had, pretty much no arthritis. I didn't have a lot of it in my ankle, so I had to go in there to scope it out and remove some things. Did that, and then, somehow it was supposed to be like a 6-month recovery or 4-month recovery. Did it in like 2, so I could do pro day. Had a couple, NFL teams that I did like a tryout for and stuff, but I always knew in my heart I wanted to coach. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I was a student of the game. I was able to learn under 3 head coaches, I think like 4 defensive coordinators. So I got to, learn a lot. So I always knew I wanted to coach. So right when I got done playing, I knew that was kind of my plan. And, I rehabbed my ankle, did pro day, and then nothing kind of worked out. So went and coached at a high school for a year in Georgia where my brother was. So I got to coach alongside with him. I was the D-line there, and he was linebacker, so it was pretty cool. Get to coach my older brother, which, obviously when you're in college and he's in college, you don't see each other a lot. So it was cool experience in that. And then went to a Division III school where I was Greensboro College, where I was the D-line coach, the equipment manager, like academic advisor. Where I was like 4 different things because they were
That's
just ones.
Different experience.
Yeah. They just wanted to give me a shot, and at that point I was taking anything I can. So I went and did Division III, and then got a call. Coach DeWitt, actually, he was a special teams coordinator with Coach Frost, and he knew the O-line coach at Troy. So I went down to Troy, where I was the O-line GA for, I think, like 4.5 months. And then Coach Frost and Coach Dawson called me up at Nebraska. I think it was 21, and called me, and they just had a special teams GA leave. And they're like, will you come do special teams? And I was like, yeah, I'll come up to Nebraska. Pay was a lot better and obviously a bigger conference. So I go up there and do special teams as a GA, then get promoted to a QC the next year. And then obviously that next year, Coach Frost gets fired after, game 3, and then Coach Chins gets fired at game 4. And I get promoted to coordinator, 27-year-old coordinator in the Big Ten. Kind of, for a guy who's only done special teams for 2 years, who was a former defensive lineman. So I, do that. And then last year I was at New Mexico State. There was at New Mexico State for, I think, almost a year. I think today would have been a year. So I was at New Mexico State there, where I did special teams again and ran everything. And, and then we had a Coach Odom, who actually was a special teams analyst at UCF my senior year. got a call from Coach Levy to go be the special teams coordinator at Mississippi State, and he called me right after that and said, "You're coming with me to be the analyst." So now I'm at Mississippi State. Now I'm at Mississippi State with Coach Leb, Coach Odom, Coach Tuck, Coach Cooper, a bunch of guys.
Oh, he brought all
UCF
them? Really?
Yep.
I didn't know he brought all them.
So
you just killed my special facts. Ah!
So now I'm here at Mississippi State as a special teams analyst. With a whole bunch of guys who are at UCF. Mark, I think he was in recruiting at UCF, and so there's a whole bunch of people who I'm familiar with here. So it's for sure nice, and I'm excited. And going New Mexico is far from Atlanta. Now I'm at in Mississippi, where it's a little bit closer to Atlanta.
How big of a difference did you see, like when you jumped up to like Nebraska or some of these other schools, as to where UCF was when you left? Like obviously UCF today is not UCF of when you were here, right? There's been a lot of change. Like the coaching staff, they just added another random coach a couple weeks ago, right? So, but from a facility standpoint, from a fan standpoint, what was the experience like compared to what you experienced at UCF?
Tell them about Nebraska, Joe.
Yeah, I mean Nebraska's different, and they do have really, like, the fans there are different. I mean, to sell out what they've done, and it'll be like 11 o'clock kick, and it's 5 o'clock. I'm driving to the hotel, at 5:36, and they're already out there tailgating. So those fans are there. It was a little different in that stadium, just going into that stadium, and all the Big Ten stadiums. Obviously, it's a little different than going into, some stadiums that we played at. But when it comes to like athlete wise and stuff like that, in my opinion, I thought just the biggest change that I saw, from my teams at like UCF and stuff to teams at Nebraska is like the O-line and D-line. Athlete wise, I thought we could match up with, our athletes at UCF. Like, we were a very, very athletic team. But the biggest thing you see is, like, we didn't have across the board 6'6", 6'5", 300-pound offensive
monsters.
Yeah. So that's where I felt the biggest difference in the play was. And then obviously facilities. I haven't been in the new facilities at UCF, so I couldn't attest now how it is. But the facilities we went through, I mean, facilities nowadays, it's nuts. I mean, just what people have. I mean, even here at Mississippi State and what we had in Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska, right before I left, they were opening like $180 million new facility, something crazy. I wish I could have saw it. But the facilities that we went through, I think Coach O'Leary said we're having a game room and put like a couple. I don't remember what those things were. Trey might know what they were.
Y'all remember like the old school Pac-Man, huge, like the size of a bed. That's what he called a game room in 2015.
Put four of those.
And you have PlayStations and things like that. He put like the little analog sticks like that, joysticks. Like, we're making a game room for you.
Now. It's different now. They've got like sleep room. They've got all kinds of
Joe.
stuff.
If you go see that facility now, it's like, you remember the sleep room at Nebraska, the all blacked out room? They have that now at UCF.
Yeah.
I told him, I said, if we would have had those facilities like the Nebraska facilities, it would have been a juggernaut at UCF. I'm like, those.
Trey, I don't want to hear it, man. I started at UCF in 2002. The Wayne Dench had the old Wayne Dench had the rusty weights. It was an old office building.
Yeah, we don't know about that.
Y'all are spoiled.
That was our study hall room my freshman year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. But I mean, I've told him plenty of times, like
Ben just pulled the old man walking both ways to school.
Dude, man, I tell you what, I felt like I was walking uphill both ways to school in the snow in Florida. I tell you what.
But like, Joe, like, you can say it like Joe, like the difference in the mentality, like of the guys at UCF when we were there. How, again, we didn't have a lot compared to all these other schools. We were eating at Nitro's, pizza, like things like that. We have our little weight room, and that was it. Little chocolate milks after. You go to Nebraska and you see, like, because I played with some of those guys, and you see some of them, the mentality is different, and that was one of the things I always said is like, you guys y'all aren't hungry for really to be great. Like, y'all think y'all want to, but y'all really don't. And I've always said that's what I thought was special about our group, was just we wanted to be great, and we didn't have a lot. We made the most out of everything we could. Even, you know, when they were Coach Duval and all them were there, we made the most out of it.
Yeah.
People
would go home for summer showing off all their gear. We'd go home with one shirt, and it was our summer workout shirt.
I had the same summer workout shirt and shorts for 3 years. I'm telling you, like that was, but you know, we were proud of that. Like that's what, you know, made us, at least that was our drive, was to get to that point one day. You know, that was, at least for me, that's what we always wanted to do. And we always had each other, you know, it wasn't anything to where we didn't need all that either. That was just, you know, we had each other. So I've always said, like, to me, that's why it was always going to be hard for Frost, because he walked into a situation of guys who were hungry, you know, like at UCF, versus Nebraska. They weren't hungry. I always tell the story. We were 0-6 and we're still selling out. Joe, when we were 0-6 at UCF, it might have been Roger in the stands. You know, it might have been Allen in the stands. Our family, maybe, you know, and that was it.
5 students.
And that was it, you know, just students, because they didn't know what to do. They were just bored, didn't know what to do. That's what they were doing. So, you know, like, that's not the same. And I've always said, like, you know, the confidence thing, it does change. And I think culture matters. Like, I think that stuff matters in college football, because when you have a culture where you're getting rewarded for losing every game, why change? You know, what's the difference? We hated when, you know, we're playing on TV and there's nobody in the stands. Nobody's cheering. We're getting blown out every week. It's embarrassing. Yeah. So, you know, I speak to that, at least, like what you saw when you went to Nebraska. You know, there's just those last final years of Frost. I know the first year and it was on the right trajectory. What happened? Like, what was the downfall?
No, I think what you said is 100% right. I think mentality, you know, that's how like you said, is I thought, you know, I think that's what kind of went wrong, is mentality. And then obviously Coach Frost was being back in his home state. He had high expectations. You know what I mean? Very, very high, you know, but, you know, he gave me an opportunity to go up there. So I care for that man a lot, and won us a lot of games at UCF. So, you know, I care for that guy a lot. But I just think, like Trey said, it's just like the mentality that we had at UCF, it's different than what they had at Nebraska when they walked into there. You know, so much, you know, so different. It's like, you know, we did the circuit, you know, Coach Duval came into the circuit and it was nothing for us. And they're like, that this wasn't bad. And I was like, again, like going back, we went through bad. We know what bad is. And then like you hear stories up at Nebraska, they did the circuit up there and they had like, you know, 3 or 4 kids pass out, you know? So it's just like mentality and stuff. And I think that's 100% it, you know, and I tell people all the time, you know, it's the mentality.
Yep. And that's what, I mean, I get on here all the time and tell Roger pretty much every week when we would talk. That's what I was always most upset when, you know, I know you might not follow UCF as much, but like we follow it. But like every week, it's like, where did that mentality go that we had? You know, that we left to the Gabe Davis, to Otis, to Marlon, because they kept it, because that's all they knew.
Sure.
You know, where did it get lost? And, you know, to me, I say it's that point of NIL where, you know, it's kind of free agency now. You know, guys are pay for play. You know, that wasn't us. That was never us. Now, did we want? Of course we wanted it, but that was never, you know, that was never us. So, you know, I think that's the difference. And it sucks because, again, we poured our blood, sweat, and tears on those Friday mornings, red shirting, and, you know, you have guys that are complaining about the fans. I'm like, y'all are complaining about 95% sellouts. Like, don't complain about that. Go look. You don't know when there was nobody here. You know, like that's what frustrates me, at least. Just, you know, now that I'm just a fan, I'm a normal person, you know, just watching the games. It's just that mentality that I feel like we've kind of lost it in college sports, at least here. You know, I think we've lost it a little bit. I think there are guys, but overall, I think you're just kind of losing it. So.
All right, Alan, I think you had a question or a comment that you wanted to make.
Yeah, Joey, speaking of that, like NIL, obviously when college football has undergone a huge transition in the last few years, when you first started coaching, NIL and the transfer portal, like we know it today, didn't really exist. And now as a coach at Mississippi State and, you know, where you've been in your journey, you're starting to see it a lot more. How much has that impacted your like role as a coach, like starting when it, you know, when you first started coaching, it really wasn't there. Now it is, you have to deal with things like the NIL and you know, like the portal and having a lot of roster turnover year to year. And it's like free agency, like Trey said. So how much has that impacted your role as a coach?
Very, very big. When it comes to the portal, I think it goes back to you got to have a relationship with all these kids. It doesn't matter where they come from, or, if you recruited them or if you didn't recruit them, you better have a relationship with all these kids. And I'm, that's the big thing I made sure of when I, was coordinator at Nebraska, when I went to Mexico State, is first thing I do is and I learned it from Heupel, I learned it from Coach Dawson with under Frost staff, is the first thing I have these players over my house. I let them come meet my wife. I let them come meet my dog. I make sure I cook for them. Because people don't realize all these players don't get a home cooked meal,
Mm-hmm.
So first thing I think with the portal is you have to make sure you have a genuine relationship with every single one of the players. And there might be a player who was the portal that you thought you had a good relationship with it, but might be a better situation. Or it's like we're at New Mexico State and we have a kid who we know is way better than New Mexico State and he could go get paid a lot more. It's just the way it is. That nowadays with college football. But I think the way you keep players in your program is you treat them right and you have a really good relationship with them. And then, NIL's definitely changed the game. I mean, obviously every situation is different when you're recruiting. You might have a kid who, might care about the money a little bit, might want, a certain amount, or you might not even talk to the kid. You might talk to somebody else and they want, a lot of money. And, so you just don't know. It changes to vary with every different recruit. So it's definitely changed the game. I joke around with people all the time. Like nowadays with D tackles, if I went into the portal my senior year, I probably would have got paid.
Who are you telling? Oh my gosh.
I mess around with people all the time because when you look out there, people are always looking for D tackles and, always looking for that pass rush end and O linemen, but D tackles and O line, big ones. So I joke around with people all the time. I was like, man, if I was, and a lot of the coaches joke around about it. So it's changed the game a lot, and some people, it's for a better situation. They might leave and, we don't know what, their home life is like, or, maybe they don't like it here and they have a chance to go, do something better. So it's like every situation is just different that you walk into, but I'll tell you what, it's changed the game of college football a lot.
Yeah. Middle linebackers too. They're they've got a premium for them as well now. So, Joey, you covered so much with us and I really appreciate your time. And, one of the things that I always enjoyed a home cooked meal, and I know you did too, because I saw you there, was after games in 2017, where the parents had the grill out after the games. We would all head over there and we would eat with the parents, the mom squad. We knew everybody, we knew Shaquem and Shaquille's parents and all that stuff. So they always invited us over. So that was always fun. I feel like that identity, I think, is a huge thing that's kind of changed. That togetherness, I think, with NIL specifically, with it being a cash deal essentially, and not having to be in one place for a period of time, because you can really change every year to year, right? Mm-hmm. I think that does have an impact on that. What do you see? And I don't know how much you've paid attention, but UCF's last year's team, what did you see that was going well and kind of went sideways? And I think we all have expectations for next year's team with KJ Jefferson and everything. What do you foresee for the future for UCF?
Yeah, I was able to catch. I don't think I was able to really sit down and watch one full game. I might have been able to watch one. But for sure, I always keep up with it, put a lot of time there. So I always keep up with UCF. I always have the alerts on, so I know what's going on after my game. But I think just last year, the big thing, I think injury hurt, obviously, with John Rice going out. I think that took a big blow, and you could see it kind of took it out of the team. But, when you look at athlete-wise and matchup-wise, and you look at UCF's athletes compared to, Oklahoma and the rest of the guys, the teams that Texas and all those guys that played. I thought UCF had just as good athletes, and that's just my opinion from looking at them. Injury hurt, and then also you're running a brand new defense. Your DC leaves and goes to Arkansas, so you're running a new defense in a new league. So I think that hurt a little bit, but I think just the injuries you could tell played a role, in my opinion, to last year. Obviously, I wasn't able to watch a ton. With what I'm doing. And then, obviously I think just, expectations are always high. Obviously go to a bowl game is always a big expectation. There's, and people, I get it, UCF had a down year, but when you look at teams who entered the Big 12, who's the one that went to a bowl game?
Right.
I think people forget about that. You look at what happened to Houston, you look up to Cincy, you look up at BYU. So I think people forget about that. But I always expect them going to a bowl game, and then obviously more than that. And obviously in the future, I can see them going to the playoffs and winning Big 12 championship. I think that's the expectation that me and Trey built there, and that's kind of what we expect now.
Yeah, I think that last year's team, I think what the expectations were. I think the expectations were low going into the season, but then once we looked good, and I think as we kind of showed that we could compete, I think it was missed opportunities is what everybody was feeling after the fact. I mean, Baylor game is a perfect example of that. That was nuts. Like, I watched that game. I'm like, really? Are we going to let Baylor beat us now? Like, after all this? But yeah, I think it's. But I think that UCF fans now, when you guys were playing, we're like, we could line up with anybody, and we could win against anybody, and we could. The question is, could we do it consistently because of depth? And I think last year, what you were seeing is us starting to transition and change and upgrade our positions. To be able to do that in a power conference over a period of time. And quite frankly, we were expecting to go to like an air raid style conference. We ended up in a smash mouth football conference, which was our personnel it was built for our defensive personnel was built around an air raid style and stopping an air raid style. And that's not what happened. So it was an interesting year. But all right, I'm just going to ask you one quick question. You've been so amazing with your time, and we really appreciate it. But we always ask this question: give me your favorite story and most humorous situation while you were a player at UCF.
Oh, geez, favorite story. I mean, favorite story for me is probably, I know it's probably winning the Peach Bowl. I mean, it's not even close. That's probably, my favorite story. And then, I mean, everything that just happened in that game, and then beating Auburn, which was even better, is doing that because my brother's wife graduated from Auburn, and I had a bunch of people there being from Atlanta, so being in my hometown. And then probably the night after that, because Coach Frost, if you're like from there, you're allowed to stay there. So the night after in Atlanta was a great time. Got to celebrate that. That's probably my favorite memory going back, winning a big game like that. But honestly, all the memory, I wouldn't be where I am today without going to UCF and meeting all the guys like Trey and, all the guys that I still talk to this day. So that's probably my favorite memory, though. And then, probably the funniest story is probably Coach O'Leary threatening us with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for free.
Oh, my God.
Trey didn't tell this story.
Bro,
that's probably my favorite. That's probably the funniest story I've ever heard.
I talk about that to like Chavis and Sed and all them. We talk about that at least once a month. Like, that was insane.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the story? You can't just like set it up that way, not tell us what happened. What had happened was
pretty much. I mean, obviously a lot of things weren't going right that year. Losing a lot of games, and then we got we'd always like Friday night meals at UCF. Like, you look forward to those.
We eating good.
You're getting lasagna. You're getting steak. You're getting whatever. Like, you think of like what you like. You're getting the best food. You're getting an ice cream bar at the end, and then pretty much we weren't performing like we were performing, and pretty much if we keep going down that track, pregame meal is going to be peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yep. I'll never forget, because remember, how with Coach O'Leary we would sit in silence, like you couldn't really talk loud. We were just sitting, and Cal Bloom got up to get an extra plate, and O'Leary said, "You think you deserve an extra plate? You deserve a peanut butter jelly sandwich next." And that's when he went on a rant, and we're like, "So who's gonna go up and get this cheesecake next?" Nobody moved. We just all were like, "We're going back to our room. We're done."
If a fork hits a plate, people freak out.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, those were like that was the fun. Like, I always say that 0-12 year was horrible, but like that was some of the funniest moments by far was that year. Like, just what happened throughout the year.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And Joey, if people want to get up with you or at least follow your career, how can they find you on Twitter or any of the other socials?
Yeah, I think Coach_Connors1 is my Twitter.
Yeah, because you changed it. Because I followed your old Twitter
I think I changed it once I got into coaching, and then obviously after the hit, I needed to change it. Got a lot of
hate. Did you get some hate?
Yeah, got a lot of hate. So that's probably the best way to fight. I'm not the biggest guy on social media, but I need to be more active. So that's probably the best way. I've moved, I think, already like 6 times in 7 years or something crazy like that. But that's the best way to follow me.
If anybody's looking, it's Coach_Connors, CONNORS 1. So clearly there was another Coach Connors out there, but he's our only one and only Coach Connors from UCF football. So again, Joey, thank you so much for jumping on. I remember seeing you when you were in school, dude, as a freshman. You probably don't remember me, but I remember you. Trey and I have kept a friendship up ever since those days. And, just really appreciate everything that you did for UCF football and that team did for UCF football. And for us in general, because it was a heck of a ride. I'd like to say something else, but we're a clean show. And, as you, I'm going to continue to follow along your coaching career, and I followed along this entire time. Would love to talk to you again sometime if you have the time. I know coaching, that your schedule is nuts. I wouldn't want it. I mean, the closest thing is like I own 3 businesses, so I might be close, but not nearly as close as the hours that you guys put in. People don't realize the hours, the time, the effort, how much time you spend at the facilities and your family also supporting you and doing that. So love that you're doing great. Can't wait to keep watching you grow, and charge on, my friend.
Appreciate it, guys. Hopefully I'll
peace, Jose.
Hopefully I'll be coaching in the bounce house one day is the goal.
Hell yeah.
Love it.
That'd be great, man.
If you get back, I need sideline passes. I mean, I get press passes.
Hey, you can't jump me. You can't jump me. Hold on now. You can't jump me.
He has like hundreds of other people that are before you.
I just called dibs. And we all know when you call dibs or you call shotgun, the first one who says it gets it. So that's where I'm going to leave. But
appreciate it. All right.
Thanks,
All right, man, Joey. Stay safe out there, man. All right, man.
Have a good one. All right,
good guy, man. That's a good guy.
Great.
He's more than a good guy. And he was a good guy in college too. Like he. When I knew him back then, I don't know if he remembers me from then or not, but I had a different hairstyle and it was a lot less gray. But he just was a really, really good guy, approachable, great teammate. Nobody ever said anything bad about Joey Connors, and he's carrying that forward and seeing success in his coaching career. That's the guy you want to root for. I think his beard game was a little bit better back then, but I'm not.
Well, that's when you could let it go scruffy. You didn't really care how you look. There was a look to be a D lineman. All those guys you just let it go.
I'll say this:
standard operating look there.
Man.
Well, Coach O'Leary didn't allow the facial hair, so he took full advantage when
everybody did. The second Coach Frost, I remember Coach Shins was like, "I don't care what kind of hair you have. I don't care what kind of beard you have." Man, I think people didn't shave for months. Like it was, you didn't see a clipper, razor, nothing ever again. So they took advantage of that.
Well, that was a great interview. We've got a lot of other football stuff to talk about too. We're going to have to, unfortunately, cut it shorter probably because we're already an hour and 23 in because he gave such a great interview. And Josh, of course, regaled us with his opera stories and everything else going on. So
I had a solid 10 minutes of fame and then just got chopped off like a chop block.
I hate to say this, but Joey Connors is a little bit more important. So we're thankful that he came on and and saved us from that storyline. All right, so I don't know, guys. What do you guys want to do? I'm going to leave it up to you. Do you guys want to keep talking football for a little bit, or do you want to go ahead and transition to basketball?
Let's go to basketball.
Yeah, let's go to basketball.
All right,
let's hit it.
Basketball.
Football.
It is.
See, those are the good guys. Those were the guys that I got to play with. It was so much fun playing with them, man. It was a blast because that was all of my class, all from the top to the bottom. That's how all of those guys were, man. It was
that story of him racing that running back was an awesome story. That was a great story.
I forgot. I was thinking about asking what his 40 time was at his pro day, and I forgot to ask him what his actual 40 time was.
He could move, though. Joey was explosive. I mean, I think he was probably one of the higher cleaning D linemen. And that, like, there's a lot of different weights that you kind of measure explosiveness. Power clean is one of them, and he was always at the top. And again, you line up Joey with most of those guys, he's beating all of them in a race. So yeah, he was an explosive dude.
I hate power clean, so we're not going to talk about that. All right, so let's go ahead and transition to hoops, as Nobra, the producer, so beautifully put in this segment, the not so beautiful BYU game. But before we get started in that, let's do a little text talk. So UCF hoops text talk. Who wants to start us off?
I got it real quick. I mean, that's all I have for the text talk. And so we were actually recording while that game was going on. So it was like, one eye here, one eye there, ESPN in the background when Roger soliloquies. And we had this great, we were kind of seeing what happens in most basketball games this, latter half of the year. We saw some of it in the beginning. We have this first half, and it just gets away from us. Like it just does. And it's, 5, 8, 10, 15, and this kind of flexible, getting behind score mostly, right? Oh God, this is why you have to watch on YouTube. I'm not cross-eyed. Thank you. Geez, man. All right. So at that point, at the half, I'm like, we're either going to keep fighting or we're losing by 20. There's no in between. That was at halftime of the game. And at the beginning of at the second half, I thought we were on the losing by 20 plus part. But just like the home game, maybe we'll get back to it a little bit, we actually kept fighting and fighting. But just like that home game, just couldn't get to over the top. Like couldn't get 1 point ahead. And that seems to be a going theme on most road games, and unfortunately also now a few home games. So yeah. Yeah, so that was my text talk. Yes, thank you. Oh my God, I'm getting like trashed everywhere here, dear listeners. I have on the video that I actually go first because, well, I just jumped ahead. I have on a side chat Alan dragging me. This is come on, people, come on.
Well, see what happens when I don't have to produce and Nobra's on there. I can come up with those funny quips as we kind of move along. So, Trey Neal, what did you have for your text talk this week?
Yeah, mine was, again, I'm in the boat of squashing the narrative that Josh is the reason we're losing games. So he said, doing my part this week, not going to the game, would love to sell the tickets for extra karma. I'm thinking, okay, if Josh isn't going, we're going to win. But recently I'm starting to see a trend. Josh doesn't go to these games. We're starting to lose close games. So I think we need to change the trend up again. Early in the year, we got to get you away because you were an issue.
Was it only one game though that trend?
No. So, for one thing, I didn't sell the Cincinnati tickets. That was the problem. I put them up, and no one
because you didn't sell them to a Cincinnati fan. That was a big thing.
So I sold my Oklahoma tickets because I couldn't be there. I sold my Kansas tickets. Well, actually, no, it's the other way around. I sold both of those two. Yeah, and we won, right? So I sold Kansas and we won just because I wanted to make most of my money for the season back. I kind of wish I would have had the $600. I would have given the $600 to be there. Oklahoma, I wasn't in the state. I couldn't even go, and we won that game. So yeah, we have two ranked teams coming up. So
it's about selling the tickets now. It's not really about you being there. It's about selling.
So Josh is not. So what we just heard is Josh is not doing this for fun. He needs to sell the tickets. So now he's trying to leverage the show into making sure he sells the tickets.
Listen, if I happen to sell a ticket for enough, I'll get this stupid duck off of our YouTube channel. How about that?
There you go. All right. Josh is going to go duck hunting. All right. Too Tall Ben. what is your text talk for this week?
So first off, there's no such thing as too tall. All right. I guess I just wanted to make sure I said this out loud on the pod. But so at the time, there was a couple minutes left in the BYU game, and we were talking about how the stats weren't really totally showing the story, except for obviously at the time it was the free throws. Then we'll get into that. But I said I'll rebounded by 10 and 3 for 16 from 3 is probably the biggest difference in the stat sheet. Obviously, the stats wound up being a little bit different than that because there was a couple of minutes left in the game here. But this is what I wanted to say on the pod. The toughness and zero quit in this team that this team has is just so easy to root for. They're my favorite team since BJ Taco and Chad Brown. I mean, I just think that while this last 2 games has just been tough, to lose 2 close games, I mean, literally by 2 points each, has been tough to see. You know, they battled back, but it just wasn't enough to overcome some rough starts. But the fact that they do battle back, the fact that they don't quit no matter what. I mean, I think we were down by 16 in the second half against Cincinnati, which we'll get into. But just the fact that they have no quit and they just continue to battle to the last whistle is the reason why I just enjoy rooting for this UCF basketball team. And I think the fan base has really taken to them as well, regardless of the overall results in the last, couple weeks. It's just, they're an easy team to root for. That's for sure.
All right. So, Alan, I guess you're last but not least, but certainly not least. I don't know. It doesn't work for you. It only works for Josh. Yeah. All right. Go ahead, Alan. What do you got?
I originally had Trey's text talk, but another one I liked was Ben made a comment about the refs that we can't really repeat on here. But I'm not.
Oh, my goodness. Both of these games. Cincinnati, too. Let's not. We'll talk about that, too.
I'm usually one that's not for blaming the refs, and I'm not blaming the refs for the total loss, but it was something that was just so noticeable. I think, Roger, you made the comment that BYU had a school record, tied a school record for free throws made in a game. I mean, especially with UCF's defense, you don't normally see that many free throws allowed or attempts at least. And it was just very noticeable. So I think that comment by Ben was really relevant for that game specifically.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, some of the way that was ref, but we've said it before, right? I know we've got an aggressive defense, right? But there's been several games this season where the imbalance in the free throw column has just been stark. And it's not just us. It's not just UCF fans. Like, I know, everybody's like, oh, you can't blame it on the refs or whatever, but all the other teams are having issues. You got guys being thrown out of games. 2 coaches this season got thrown out of games. An AD got fined. Yeah. AD got fined.
I mean, top teams in the conference.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a narrative. It's not just UCF fans saying, ho hum, blah, 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 whatever. The coaches and the ADs themselves are coming out and saying this is atrocious. And then we heard that they didn't get graded at the end of the year, or the Big 12 didn't track their performance. Like, are you serious? The Big 12? You don't track the performance? I mean,
obviously.
Yeah, clearly. Because if not, they'd have been getting a failing grade. But that being said, let's actually talk a little bit more detail. Obviously, UCF loses to number 19, BYU 90-88. Oh, so close. UCF, like we said, was down through a lot of this game, and they have this. It was weird because we mentioned on the podcast a few times how UCF had kind of turned the corner on a couple of things. One, bless you, Alan. The first one was, that UCF had started scoring earlier, whereas earlier in the year, they hadn't really done anything in the first half, and then they, put it together in the second half, but they had strung together several games where that was different. We were coming out firing. Houston was one. Like there was a few others where we just came out firing. And then secondly, the consistency, right? We've been talking about consistency, whether it be now it's consistency in rebounding. We're talking about consistency in the offense, where you're not going 3 or 4 minutes with offense, and that's found us again. So
your mic's a little bit messed up there, Roger. Something happened again with your audio.
Under the sea.
Under the sea.
Under the sea.
Oh boy, are we? Is it better now, or am I still?
You're good now.
We're good now.
All right,
Yeah,
Roger's having some technical difficulties, and we're singing The Little Mermaid. So you guys are getting a show within the show this week. So
a combo breaker.
Yeah, but the whole point that I was trying to make is that consistency in offense and not having those 3 or 4 minute times where just the offense falls. Then we make a run, we get it close, and then they just completely stutter again and don't look like they know what they're doing. And that's tough. So, Darius Johnson in this game, he had 20 points. Sellers had 17 points. Machowski, this was kind of his coming out game, I think, had 11 points. We've been talking about him quite a bit, and he seems like he's starting to figure it out. UCF was out rebounded 37-32 earlier in the season. We did a lot better on the glass. UCF shot 50% from the floor, which was a pretty good shooting percentage. This was a good, anytime you score 88 points in the Big 12, you've got a good offensive game going, right? But again, another bugaboo is consistency in those free throws. Sometimes we're shooting 70-80%. This game we shot 53%, which just gave us 14 points. So those are lost possessions. Those should be possessions that turn into points, but they're lost possessions essentially. At the end of the day, when we're talking about that, if you're shooting 50% or 53%, that means you're leaving 14 points at the free throw line, which in a 90-88 game, even if you pick up a quarter of those, right? Even if you're shooting 70% or anything, that's going to make a difference. Now it changes the flow of the game, right? But at the same time, free throws matter. They're free points for a reason. And if you're putting the effort into getting fouled, then you should do that. You should hit those free throws. So
they made 14 more free throws than we attempted as a team. They made 14 more. Like, that's insane.
And it was still 90-88.
Yeah, then we attempted, which is just nuts. Yeah. I mean, they scored 40 points from the free throw line, and we lost by 2. It's just like, what? Like, if you would have told me that BYU scores 90 points against us, like, I would have figured we got blown out. Like,
right.
I didn't think that we could hang with them offensively the way that we did. But we also spotted them 10 points, as you said, Roger. Like, we spotted them 10 points in the game. We were down 10-0. And then we came out in the second half and went from being down, I think we were down by what? We were down by 13 at the half, and then eventually we were down by 19 a few minutes into the second half. And so, like, we allowed them to go on runs kind of, it was the beginning of the game, close out the second half, or close out the first half, start the second half, and that was when we had to claw our way back into it. And it just wasn't enough at the end. We can't spot a top 20 team, top 3 offensive team in their house. We can't spot them 10 points. Like, it's just like, you just can't do that, like, on the road especially. And it's amazing that this game even came down to the wire the way it did because of that. But I continue with the rest of the stats, but it was wild that happened.
Well, I was going to say the turnovers were low, considering how many points were scored and how many possessions were there. We only had 9 turnovers to 17 for BYU, and that really made the difference for us in getting back in this game. We had 19 fast break points, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is points off of the turnovers that we were able to generate. And they did phenomenally. That's what got us back into that game. And we get in these spurts where we start getting steals and whatever. And BYU is a good passing team. That's what they're known for, is their fundamentals. And, we were able to disrupt that. So that was very positive for us. 27 points off of turnovers. 27 points off of turnovers to 9 points for BYU. So that's really where we made that up. We had 46 points in the contest, which is a place that we said we needed to focus on and get better at, versus BYU's 26. And foul difference here, 27 fouls committed by UCF, which is 19. So most of those fouls that were called on BYU were towards the end of the game when it's already kind of out of hand. So those are almost like makeup calls. But still, they had 46 attempts. We had 26 attempts at the free throw line. So that was really the story of this game. The guys played hard. They clearly can play with the number 19 team in the country, just like they can play with the number 16 team in the country, just like they can play with all of these other teams. We just needed a couple of wins right now for the season, and now I think the tournament, is pretty much gone. I mean, BYU Big 12 is wild, but after this and the Cincinnati game, I think it'll be difficult.
Yeah, you're still kind of cutting out again, Roger, on the audio, but and I think after we kind of review the two games, I want to jump into some of those chances that we have of making the tournament. But I think that obviously these two games would have been huge, and they were both 2-point losses. We can get into the details of the Cincinnati game as well, but this BYU game, it was just a actually both of them really, but they were like game of runs that just kind of we weren't able to really even out in the end. I mean, you mentioned Nils Machowski. I agree. He had his best game in a UCF uniform against BYU on the road in a very tough environment. Asked to, shoulder a decent amount of minutes in that game. But I thought, especially offensively, he was extremely poised. He hit a humongous three. I think it was about 2.5 minutes left on an underneath out of bounds play. Kind of came off a screen and went to the weak side corner, and Shamari Allen hit him with a perfect pass, and he knocked it down. I mean, that was a huge shot. So I was really pleased to see the way that he played in this game. 11 points, 2 big steals. He had a couple of, I think his steal, down the stretch, that was huge as well. That's going to be huge. Having another guard that can step in there along with Anton Jones that, kind of comes off the bench and provides some good quality minutes. But yeah, overall, it was just kind of like the stats don't totally tell the story. I think that we kind of the way that some of my frustration with UCF basketball teams in the last 5 or 6 years is that when they do struggle, when they do struggle, like with a high-powered offensive teams, they fall back into like one-on-one, matchups or just kind of like that one-on-one street ball game or whatever that just never really works out for them. This team doesn't do that. They still stay together. They still make crisp passes. They try not to turn the ball over or whatever. And so you saw that in this BYU game. They just fell short at the end.
All right. Anybody have anything else that they want to talk about with regard to BYU? All right. So the not so beautiful, the not so beautiful Cougars are now officially in the rearview mirror. Let's go ahead and talk about Cincinnati a little bit. Another close game, 76-74. And from a stats perspective, UCF was pretty impressive, in this game again. So we were outscored 37-30 at the half, and we outscored the Bearcats 44-39 in the second half. So our defense was being broken down a little bit in this game in the second half. Johnson again led the way, 16 points. Allen and Sellers both had 15. UCF shot 47% from the field. Again, a good shooting percentage day. Cincinnati only shot 42%. So they actually shot worse than what we did. But we got out rebounded 45-33, 18-8 on the offensive glass. So it was those putbacks that really hurt us. And for some reason, UCF, and Ben, you've said this multiple times, has a problem in the paint on those 3 to 4 foot type of bunnies that kind of hurt us. Since he shot 61% from the free throw line and 26% from three. So Cincinnati really wasn't a good team from that perspective either. So it's really, really interesting when you look at this. We shot 47.5% from the field goal percentage, 33% from three versus 29. We had 18 free throw attempts versus their 21, so pretty close there. We shot 77.8% from the charity stripe this game. This game really was rebounds, in my opinion, and Cincinnati made us pay off of turnovers. They got 19 points off of turnovers versus our 14. So that really, I mean, points in the paint, 36-36. That was even, right? So it was all about the offensive glass and being able to box out better and make sure that we can, stop them from doing that. And I don't know what's going on, but that seems to have gotten worse. And we did lead in this game. We led by 2 at one point in this game, and then of course the refs at the end. So Ben, this is I'd love your analysis on those last few sequences in the game there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll leave it to somebody else actually, because I kind of like missed it live and I wasn't able to really watch it back. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to really see it in detail. I was listening to it on the radio. I was listening to Mark Daniels' call, and so him and Taylor Young were rather animated. And so anyone else can kind of provides a little bit better analysis than me. And I was on my way to a concert on Saturday night and I missed it live as far as watching it. But certainly there was some tough calls down the stretch that killed us. And it's unfortunate that we were in that position. I'll say that because I think some of the runs that happened that Cincinnati took on kind of about the let's call it a few minutes into the second half to about the 13-minute mark was where a big Cincinnati run that kind of was that they were able to kind of maintain towards the end when we kind of came charging back. So
all right, Josh, you were shaking your head a lot. Do you want to tackle it?
I was in the exact same boat as
no one saw it.
It is my birthday weekend, dude. I was doing a lot of stuff that wasn't related to sports.
All right, so let me say it then. I guess okay. I'm trying to give you guys airtime, and clearly I can't do that.
No, not on this one.
All right,
Arias, yeah, absolutely.
So at the end of the game, we were down. We had the possession, and we head faked basically at the 3-point line, behind the 3-point line. And when we head faked, got the guy to jumped up and shot the three, were fouled, but they didn't call a foul on it. Every other game that's been called on us, right? Every single game. Everywhere else that's called. That's the biggest no-no in college basketball defensively is you don't foul a 3-point shooter. But got him to jump. He jumped, was fouled in the air. That should have been 3 free throws with DJ, who's one of our best free throw shooters that we have on the team. So the score is 76-74. We had a shot at I think for some reason I'm remembering that that it was it should have been a 3-point play, so we would have had a chance to win on free throws, basically. And it was just a blown call, and I think everybody was up in arms about that. I mean, people that don't normally complain about the refs were up in arms about that. So it was, it was a terrible call. And if anything, we should have got a little home cooking because we were playing on our home court, but we haven't been getting that all season, I don't think.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And if you would have heard Mark Daniels doesn't hold back on those types of moments when it comes to an obvious wrong call, and he was hot on the air when that
was hot.
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed to be like just a wild sequence where there was just disbelief of that they didn't call it in that way. It's extremely unfortunate, but it's, again, I'll say it again. I mean, it's unfortunate that we were in that position where we needed that call, but the refs have been an issue throughout the Big 12, but in particular, and I know we're biased, but in particular, we've seen it throughout the conference slate for UCF. I mean, it just seems like there's some odd calls going on. I mean, even going back to, we were talking about this on Text Talk, but going back to the end of the UCF BYU game where the refs in a critical moment, they blew the whistle, but they blew the whistle to figure out if a shot was a 3 or a 2, and so they gave each team an extra timeout, but it was just a strange time to stop the game at that point when UCF is trying to charge back. And so that's just another example of the refs kind of
influencing the outcome of the game.
Yeah.
That's where it gets frustrating. If it doesn't matter, if we were going to lose anyway and it's a no call 3-point, fine. But when you have the ability to influence the outcome of the game, the refs should not step into that. Mm-hmm. Unless it's something blatant like that 3-point shot. I mean, you get that call every day of the week, in any league in the entire country, and we didn't get that call. It was just ridiculous. So, all right. So at 13-11 now, 4-8 in the Big 12. Remember, I said 4 wins at the beginning of the season. Ben, I think you said 5.
No, I said 4 as well. That was we were both in agreement on that, 4 wins, and we had that with the win against Oklahoma, but last 3 have been tough ones.
Yeah, I think we're still in play. I think we're still in play for the NIT hopes, but it's kind of like what I was talking about football earlier. Is all of the games that we were right there, you know what I mean, and you can look at that as a positive and say, hey, we didn't get blown out. Really in more than 1 to 2 games in the Big 12 so far. But at the same time, it's frustrating to be that close.
So I would like to provide a little bit of hope for UCF fans, if you don't mind.
Sure. So for the tournament or for
the NCAA tournament.
All right. I'm going to step back from the mic.
What have I talked about? What have we talked about all year when it comes to Big 12 basketball? It's just a series of opportunities that are big games. And that's what we didn't get in the American. If we're sitting here, and I think that's why we're talking, starting to talk this way, right? We're starting to prepare ourselves that we were there and we had a chance, and now with 6 games left in the conference slate, we don't have that anymore. But I'll remind you, especially with West Virginia coming up Tuesday night. I'll remind you that West Virginia made the NCAA tournament last year by winning 19 games and winning 7 conference games. They won 7. They went 7 for 11 in the Big 12 last year, and they made the NCAA tournament. And one of the reasons why they did that is because they had a couple of big-time ranked wins towards the end of the year. And of the 6 games remaining, 3 of those are against ranked teams, 2 of those are against top 10 teams. And so I'm not saying that we're going to pull it off. What I am saying, though, with confidence, is that we have a lot of opportunity in front of us, that if we could clip off 2 or 3 of those wins, then, or 2 or 3 more wins in conference, it sets us up to have another, like, a further opportunity in the Big 12 tournament. So, like, that's what this like conference provides for us, and that's what this, to use a word that we overused towards the beginning of the season, but we haven't used in a while, so I'm going to use it again. That's what the gauntlet of the Big 12 also provides for us. Is that, and make no mistake about it, we got Texas Tech, Iowa State, and Houston, all ranked teams. But good news is all 3 of them are at home.
Yeah.
The three road games that we have remaining are 2 of those 3 are the bottom teams in the conference, and TCU is kind of the middle of the road. You never know what can happen at TCU at the end of the year. So I'm saying we've got some really good opportunity in front of us, that this thing isn't over yet. And maybe if you want to look at it really, really positively over what happened over the last couple of weeks, maybe if we start to pull out these wins over the next week, like, so we go 2-0 this week, all of a sudden we could have a totally different conversation next Monday when we're recording this pod about our NCAA tournament hopes.
All right, I have a really, really funny thing that I would say after you said that, that I'm going to put in the private chat but not put across the screen. You know, to your point, for us to get to 17 wins, we need to win 4 of the remaining 6. So that's a tall task. But we do have West Virginia at 7 p.m. And it's on ESPNU. So for those of you, hopefully you've got the U in your cable package. But West Virginia is a very winnable game. We did well against them last time, but it is on the road, and they play a lot better on the road. So here's to hoping we do well there. So I think that about wraps it for Hoops for this week. We do have a couple of things to talk about on the UCF football side. Well, not necessarily UCF football side, but we've been talking about all the changes and all these news articles with both college football and basketball that are being bandied about. And Rick Pitino actually had some suggestions for college athletics. He said, get rid of the letter of intent, the LOIs, letter of intent, in favor of recognizing the fact that everybody's going to be on NIL deals and make them lock into an NIL deal for 2 years instead of having them sign. And then also, his suggestions also are about putting a salary cap, right, on NIL deals. And yes, this is basketball related, but these are some of the ideas being bandied around on the football side as well. So, what do you guys think of those 2 ideas?
Go ahead, Josh, or anybody.
I was gonna say, I think if basketball, I don't know if it's good or bad. I'll preface it as that. But if they could get ahead of football and kind of, if this is where we're going, get ahead of football, almost to kind of stay in relevancy and not be reactive. Be like, hey, football's gonna be like, hey, basketball doing it. Let's take them on with us. Because I think they're branching off. Ultimately, I think that's what's going to end up happening. It's going to turn to minor league system, whether it's just football, whether it's football and basketball, whether it's all these collegiate sports just turn to the system. So get out ahead of it. Be the first ones to say, hey, this is what we did. Be the ones that try out the journeyman that started it. And because I think it's headed this way anyway. I mean, it's salary cap without salary cap, because we all have a certain NIL limit that we can have. There's some schools that have unlimited funds, and that's eventually going to kind of like baseball. It's whoever has the most money is going to pay for the best players over time. Maybe not immediately, but just in the long haul. So to protect the sport, to get ahead of it, why not go to it? Why not go to that structure of salary cap, lock in guys so that you can't just jump around and go, get here, collect the bag, and then jump to another school that offers you a bigger bag. No, make you lock into a contract. You can't leave for 2 years, 3 years. I think that's what they should do. So that's just me. I don't know if that's a good thing for the sport or a bad thing, but if we're going to go there now. Try to be the first one to lay the blueprint, in my opinion.
Well, I was going to say, as long as I'm not sounding like I'm underwater. And
You do.
You do sound like that.
Yeah, dude, you're diving. Where's the Nobra? Where's the Josh is having technical difficulties?
Man.
Oh, you just wanted because we had that for you.
We always do it for Josh. That one is like saved in the banners for this for Josh. It's pretty funny. Like, I know you guys can't see it on your side because you don't produce the show, but for Nobra and I, we can save the banners, and that's one we save with Josh's name on there literally the entire time. So
is this any better? I mean,
no,
it's not.
I have no idea what's going on.
Hey, do what I did when I was a kid. Just unplug it, throw some air into it.
I just did.
Plug it back in.
All right. Josh, the hard reboot did not work for you. So, and for the salary cap conversation there, Trey, what he was saying is cap it at $1 to $2 million because, this all basically goes into the other topic of tonight, which was the transition. Yeah, I heard that, Roger. I was like, whoa, pause. I don't know what we're talking about, but yeah, the other part of this was there was an article that came out about the G5 divide. And there was a pretty extensive, article written from G5 coaches and how they are talking about how they can't compete anymore because all of their players, they even go into it. If they've got someone who's the comments were, if someone's over 6'5", we expect to lose them. If someone does well their first year, we expect to lose them. And they called themselves basically a farm league for the power schools, right? So we're one of those. And then they went into it a little further and said that they expect even more of a divide later on, and these are sitting head coaches at places like SMU, right? So not small schools like UTEP or somebody like that. We're talking about SMU head coach coming out and saying, "Hey, we can't compete here. Maybe we should do our own playoff." Now, again, they bought their way in, right, to the power conference, but SMU, we all know how much money they have. If they can't compete with their NIL at a G5 level, then that tells you, everything that we've been talking about UCF's ability to recruit with the power label holding us back. Now that we've got it, we can compete there. But, people spending $1 to $2 million just on NIL for basketball, right? And we all know, the scholarships are much more limited than what they are for football. So if you extrapolate that out based on how many people play football, that's a lot of money being thrown around. So the question is, if we don't have some sort of legislation that kind of limits or places a salary cap, does the G5 survive at all? Because I think it lends more towards what Trey's talking about with a full separation. Is this inevitable at this point?
Well, I think that whatever, if they ever were to come to some sort of salary cap, it would still benefit the Power Five in the sense that the salary cap would be high. I don't think the salary cap's going to be low enough where it really would allow the G5 or whatever number you throw behind the G at the moment, to compete anyways. I mean, I think this is just. I think not to obviously we were a part of it like 5 minutes ago, so like not to like sound like we're we're what we hated.
We finally got in the club, yeah. So now
that's what I mean, yeah. Like not to
yeah.
sound like that, but like I mean, but honestly, like before I mean, how many Cinderella stories really existed in the 90s? Like you had like when you think about the true stories of college football, of like these great games and these bowl games that happen, like Doug Flutie throwing the Hail Mary and Cordell Stewart throwing the Hail Mary for Colorado back in the day, like these amazing plays that happened and like these huge runs that happened, like they didn't come out of nowhere. Like even the teams, the Miami teams in the 80s, like the U documentaries were about, like it took them a couple years of like basically going undefeated to like get to the national championship, like where they were voted as national champions, because obviously we didn't have like a true national championship game back in the 80s and 90s. And so I guess the definition around it and the insane amount of money around it, I don't know.
Miami, it wasn't just money; it was also cocaine.
Well, yeah, but I think the SMU, like hearing what the SMU coach or whoever is whoever is complaining about this, right? It's like he's saying that we can't compete, and it's like, what's your definition of competing? Like, what's your definition of like competing? Like quote unquote competing, because like SMU had a great year.
He's talking about competing for players and how their players, if they have a great year, all of them are getting pulled the next year. You can't keep them. That's what he's talking.
And I hear you on that, but I remember when the transfer portal really, like before NIL, like you and I, Roger, like we would kind of go back and forth about this on Nightline. It's like because you made the rightful comment, we kind of agreed to disagree that like, well, shoot, UCF's just going to become a farm system for Alabama or whatever. And I said, well, hold on, like it kind of works both ways. It works both ways because when the transfer portal gets more open, or the transferability of these athletes gets wider open, like essentially, it kind of works both ways, where you maybe our leading tackler goes to FSU or goes to somewhere else, 1 year, but you at the same time you get the player from Alabama that was a highly recruited player out of high school, and he didn't quite play his freshman year, and you get that player to come to your school because he sees a better opportunity to play. And that's what we were talking about 4 or 5 years ago. And so I think that still works both ways for the G5 as well.
I'll say this about that. I agree, but I feel like it was different for Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF because we were still high enough cachet that we were borderline P5 to begin with, right? A lot of these teams now, you look at it, I mean, you don't even hear Boise anymore. Right. And Boise, for how long? No, but seriously, how long was Boise the name brand and the pinnacle that everybody, held up and as the example of someone who should be moved up? Right. You don't hear that anymore. Nobody looks at it. And there's a lot of horse trading even within the P5 for those folks. Right. Would Javon Baker have come to UCF had we not known that we were going to the power conferences? I don't know. Would Kobe Hudson? I don't know.
I mean, this is Javon Baker played 1 year in the Big 12. I mean, he came. This was his only year in the Big 12. This is our first year. This was only one. So I mean, I think UCF, like you said, Roger. I think y'all are both right. I think y'all are almost talking to different points because I think UCF has a brand that's bigger than most G5s. I think Cincinnati's built up a brand that's bigger than most G5s. BYU a little bit, not to that extent, but like Houston, like those guys are a little bit bigger brands, recognizable brands compared to, FAU. Troy, UTEP. Like the only people that know about them are the ones that kind of go there, just realistically speaking. But like Ben said, we're a product of having, Alabama players while also losing players to Florida State, losing player to Ole Miss, to bigger programs. We're also the recipients of these kind of players. I think ultimately the talent's going to win out no matter what. Kind of speaking to what you're talking about, the Cinderella runs, there's not really going to be Cinderella runs. I mean, in
College
football, who was it?
Built for that way.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. I don't think
all tournament is built for.
Yeah, I don't even think NFL football is built like that. I think it's just the best teams are going to win. How do you get the best teams? You have the best coaches and the best players, ultimately. Now, I think our year, the 2017, we had a little, our moment where we were kind of the Cinderella, but ultimately, most of the time, it's Alabama, Georgia. What do they have? They have a lot of money. They have great coaching. They have great talent. That's ultimately what normally always wins out.
And Trey, I will say this to that, though. The consistent and the measuring stick for me is who is playing in the New Year's Six game, right, out of the G5. Mm-hmm. And it was consistently those teams. It was us. We played in 3, right?
Yeah.
You had Houston and you had Cincinnati who went on their crazy run.
I mean, those were the teams when I was playing, like, those are who we saw as equals in a sense. We always knew we possibly would line. Now, Memphis was back end, but like my first couple of years, I think we tied with Cincy my first year for the conference championship. Like that was the programs where we're like, y'all want to go to the conference championship or one conference? We have to go through them. We got to go to Houston. We got to go to Cincinnati. Like it was never really the other programs. And like you said, those were the teams that were getting the New Year's Six. But I remember, I think Houston beat FSU one year. The year they were really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati kind of after UCF, they had their little run. Like, those were the teams that built the cachet. So I think they have more name recognition. But like to Ben saying, I think that's
also before NIL though.
Yeah. I think kind of like what Ben's saying is just football. You're not going to see as much parity as far as who's going to win. I think I wish you could realistically. I think there are teams in specific time frames that could. Like I think our UCF teams could have challenged for a national championship. I don't know how many more teams, if you look at just the whole scheme of, say, the past 20 years, can you really pinpoint a team like that? It's very few far in between. Whereas basketball, it's a lot of the time because it's round after round after round where, one game you can get that upset.
Trey, you did. I mean, you had Boise, right? Boise was one. But like the whole point that I'm trying to make, I think, goes more to the point of there's no brands left that are going to consistently be in the running for that playoff spot, right? And all these players that are borderlines that are considering going down to the G5, right, would be okay with playing for UCF or Cincinnati or Houston or someone because they're more than likely, and it was all American teams, right, that were more likely to get that exposure that a New Year's Six game provides.
Oh, yeah.
To do that kind of stuff, right?
For sure.
Tulane had a run the last couple of years too, but are they going to be able to do that consistently? No. UCF has. We did it in 2013. We did it in 2017. We did it in 2018. And the expectation in 2019, we did pretty well in 2019.
And in 2022, yeah. I think that whole stretch.
Yeah, so that I don't think there's any teams or brands left that are going to be able to do that. And with NIL now rearing its ugly head, they can afford 1 or 2 players that might be difference makers for them, but they can't build a team around that. And I don't think there won't be anybody that will consistently, even if they keep the playoff spot for the G5 into the new contract after the next couple of years, which there's questions about that. Right?
I don't think they are.
I don't know. It depends on if they want to, I think it depends on if the rest of the NCAA teams allow the power teams to have their way, because that was basically what that spot was to begin with. It was basically a bribe for after the Big East went to the AAC and we're going to have their auto bid pulled. That was basically a bribe to stay relevant. And part of what we were talking about last week or a couple weeks ago was now, the what they traded for the autonomy. They gave the power teams autonomy, which is what gives them the power status, right? And they also gave them votes that were worth more. They were weighted more than what the rest of the G5 teams were. I don't think they do that this time. They've already got that. So what leverage does the G5 have at this point to have their way? And the only thing that I can think of is the tax implications. And I think that's going away because there's still some congressional stuff, some legal stuff that's happening in the background as well, where, we had the unionization that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. It's going to be, and we were talking about running the NALs through the schools now directly instead of having these offshoots, right? It's going to be a situation where all of that comes into play where they're just not going to be able to compete. And I think, what Patino said with putting a salary cap in there, that's the only way that you're going to be able to compete, even with the Power Four, right? Within the Power Four, the Big Ten and SEC versus the Big 12 and ACC. And I don't think the ACC is going to be out there long. So, I really feel it's not just them. I think there's going to be a Power Three, and the Power Three will be the buckets that will draw enough eyeballs, for Fox and ESPN to make it worth their while, right? But they're not going to be paid the premium brands and what the premium brands get. That's what I think you're seeing right now. And I don't see any G5 team that's going to be able to do that. And that's going to affect
I think I think Ben alluded to it earlier too. It is the salary cap, $2 million across the board for every team. I think that keeps it competitive. Now, if the salary cap's 25, 30 million across the board, well, SMU's not really going to pay that out. Alabama's going to pay that out. Texas is going to pay that out. But so ultimately you're still going to have, it's going to be like baseball where, hey, there's no salary cap, but only a few owners really want to spend unlimited money. And some of them are just penny pinching, it's going to turn into that.
So I'll remind everybody what NIL stands for: name, image, and likeness. And this is the reason why the salary cap it might happen, because they might say, okay, so we're going to bring everything out into the open. The schools are going to pay the players directly, and the money that they pay the players directly, yes, we're going to institute a salary cap on that. But because of the way the system has been set up over the first few years of existence, and the fact that is saying that these athletes can make money off of their name, image, and likeness, it doesn't matter what the schools do, because Alabama will say, great, you gave me my $2.5 million salary cap. I decided to pay these players directly, but it isn't going to stop the booster because of the way the system's set up, and it won't change. It can't change. It doesn't stop the booster that owns the car dealership that decides he wants to pay the quarterback $500,000 to play for that season. And that's the deal that those two individuals have on the side.
Like endorsements.
It is
yeah,
endorsements.
The new legislation.
The money the Chiefs pay Travis Kelce versus the money that he makes from, insert advertisement here.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, that's what Tom Brady did too. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but
so that's the reason why the salary cap actually doesn't make a difference, because these schools will still be able to pay these players whatever the heck it takes to get them to go there. And so that's the unfortunate reality. But I will go back to one thing though that I do like the thought process behind, and that is the idea of a player being able to sign a multi-year contract with a school. Where letter of intent right now is all 1-year deals, right? Scholarships,
not all of them.
Scholarships are all 1-year deals for the most part in Division I athletics. No.
Yes. Yeah. Well, at least I remember Coach O'Leary literally he He told us, and he was like, listen, if you guys don't perform, you're not guaranteed your scholarship for 4 years. Even though you're on a 4-year scholarship, you're not guaranteed that scholarship. It's only 1 year.
Right.
So you have to continue performing.
So since it's essentially professional
Mm-hmm.
athletics, I mean, that's what it is. I like the idea of certain athletes seeing the benefit and certain institutions seeing the benefit of trying to sign someone to a multi-year deal and making that worth it for them, that they have them to a multi-year deal and they have to hold up that end of the contract. And if you want to get out of that contract, there's financial implications for that and all that. I like the idea of that. And that would be where a union would be extremely valuable. A players union would be extremely valuable for that. But I also like the idea of saying, an athlete saying, like a top tier athlete saying, doing the LeBron James model and saying, I'm going to bet on myself and I'm going to sign a 1-year deal to provide me flexibility to get out of this at the end of the year and move on to another school or re-sign for more money with this school.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so I like the idea of just kind of pulling back the veil and saying, guys, this is professional sports. And so we're going to model these contracts after professional sports. But the last thing you're going to have to do though, is you're going to have to maintain the years of eligibility, staying with 5 years to play for or 6 years to play for, unless there's extenuating circumstances, because I think the temptation over time with that is that why wouldn't you want to just, if it's just a professional model, why wouldn't you just want to directly compete and keep a Caleb Williams at USC for 7, 8, 9 years if he's going to benefit you from that? Like, I mean, look at the popularity. And this is something that was talked about on radio locally here with Mark Daniels, but like, look at the popularity of Caitlin Clark at Iowa, right? Like, I mean, she's benefited because she's not only a phenomenal player, but she's built up her name recognition over 6 years at Iowa. So like, I mean, so that's another thing that it'll be interesting to see what happens as a next step if we move in this direction, is who's going to be the first athlete that challenges eligibility years and the amount of years that they can get. They can be out of school and compete out of school, because that could be the next shoot a drop in lawsuits against the NCAA to try to change some sort of rules that have been around forever.
Well, it'll certainly be interesting, and a conversation that we're going to continue to have, because this is an evolving conversation, right? Both from the NIL front and legally, and a bunch of other different avenues. However, we are at 2 hours and 22 minutes and 4 seconds. So let's go ahead and move forward with Alan's oxymoronic stat of the week. Alan?
Well, I only have one here. We talked about how UCF scored a lot in that BYU game. Really one of their top scoring performances of the season, and by far their best in Big 12 play. They had a couple points games in the 90s in non-conference play, but they actually scored 63 points in the second half, which would be more than 6 other games total this entire season for the entirety of the game. They were able to outscore that in the second half alone against BYU the other day.
Interesting. That's a crazy stat to think about.
That's a hell of a pace that they were able to keep up with BYU on that 63 points. That's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of those on turnovers, a defense making offense. All right, Josh, I know you said earlier that Joey may have stolen your thunder here, but do you have a sometimes funny fact of the week?
Yeah, it's not a NBA based All-Star Weekend scoring thing like Allen, but yeah, I changed it up a little bit. We had Joey Connors on the show, and he's now the special teams analyst at Mississippi State. So let's talk about just assistant football coach roles and hire. OCs, DCs, head coaches, etc. What percentage of current Mississippi State coaches were formerly working at UCF from that level and up.
Ooh, that's interesting. That was loud. Whatever that was. So I'm gonna say 48. No, I'm gonna say 57%.
Okay.
I'm gonna say 40%.
Alan?
55.
46.
Ben?
55%.
Ooh, Alan is as the statistician is the closest to the pin. 45%. 45% of assistant head coaches and up were former UCF coaches. Cliff Odom, and he left most of them, not all full names. Cliff Odom, Jeff Levy, obviously, Corey Bell, and that was a name when I started looking at the list. I'm like, oh, man, yeah, he did some good things, right?
Yeah, he's good. I like him.
Yeah, and we have Anthony Tucker. And John Cooper is the other one that I was like, I remember this name. So I started looking into them, and it's a lot. So yeah, 45%, 5 out of 11 of the assistant head coaches and up are all formerly on UCF payroll. In addition, on the way down, there's probably more, but there's a lot of quality assistant, analysts and assistants and QC and all that stuff. So yeah, right, it's a lot.
So Mississippi State is UCF North. All right, guys, that'll do it for that this week. Josh, do you want to take us home with the quick update on other UCF sports, although most of it was rained out over the weekend?
Yeah. So rain was our biggest opponent for the last couple of weeks. But in all reality, so we had UCF baseball. They won their season opener 12-11 over Bryant, and then almost got a game 2 in, but really didn't. And then in the Orlando area, mostly in Florida, it rained for about 50 some odd hours straight. It was very odd. So the rest of that series was rained out. They'll play Miami, well, maybe today, depending on when you listen to this, but tomorrow as we record, but we're getting close to midnight. So
I'm going to be there.
Nice.
I might give Coach about 2 or 3 innings on the mound.
That what? Well,
you better go talk to Coach Wallace. You better go talk to him.
I am. I need to get my jerseys. I need to get the light blue Citronaut throwback hat, and then I gotta
see if you can scoop me a hat. See if you can scoop me a hat, because they're
Roger. See, you keep on trying to jump me first with the tickets, and now with the hat. I gotta get this stuff first.
Scoop me. I didn't say you didn't have to get one. To ask him for 2, 1 for me, 1 for you. We said it on the air when he was on the interview. So
there are 3 other people in this conversation. Right?
So we're having this conversation. I'm just saying, you got to jump in there. You got to jump in there.
UCF softball went 2-1 last week. They beat Liberty 7-5, but lost to UNC 2-1, and they beat Wisconsin 21-9. I can't believe
that game was crazy too. Oh my gosh.
21-9. And the last 3 games are canceled due to weather. UCF women's hoops, they unfortunately are like the men's hoops teams, losing close games. They lost to BYU 64-60, and man, the Kansas State game, they were so close too, and that they're ranked like 14th or something really high. Unfortunately, they also lost 60-58, another 2-point loss for a basketball team at UCF. Now, men's tennis were undefeated until they suffered their first loss of the season to the Gators. It was a 6-1 loss. It was here's the thing. It was close in a lot of areas, but kind of like the basketball team, couldn't get over the top across the board. Now, we also had our women's tennis team who also lost a little bit. This is why I'm not wearing a collar this time, because we didn't do too much winning. They lost to Tennessee 0-4 and lost to Wisconsin 4-2. So it's been just not the best time for UCF sports, except for baseball, and we have some time. And I will say, if you are a track and field fan, the track and field championships are coming up this weekend, and a lot of other interesting games are happening too.
All right, awesome. Thank you for that update. Just for clarity, if you're talking about Wisconsin, it's usually denoted as whiskey, not Wisco, as it was in the show notes this week.
Thank you. You could put anything in front of me and I'll read it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, it was like Ben and Trey. If you guys remember from the days of Nightline, I always had a good time giving Andrew the hard names to say.
Oh yeah.
So, all right, guys. Well, that was a heck of an episode. We learned about another layer of Josh. He's going to have to serenade us at some point. He's really opened the door now. He's going to be starting his show with freestyle raps. And, on top of that, we also had a great interview with UCF legend Joey Connors. We have Trey every week, but it was fun to listen to them rap. Got a few new stories out there that I hadn't heard before. So other than that, have a great week. I'm excited for this week. I'll be in town. And go Knights and
Charge on.
So I could do some singing afterwards. Maybe that's like the ending of the episode. We just